This is a tale out of a Southern Gothic novel. Greed, jealousy, false trails, envy. It was a fairy tale, Cinderella kind of story that's supposed to have a happy ending.
Great look to right.
Lorenzen was an absolute force on the court.
He was an instant millionaire.
Just as fast as he was making money, money was being spent.
He loved the ladies. The ladies loved him too.
It was almost like he was just blind with love.
She put moves on him like karate chop that they don't do in Mississippi.
She saw a future with a millionaire.
And then, out of the blue, Lorenzen Wright went missing.
If he's missing, he doesn't want us to know where he is.
Developing tonight, a former player disappeared and...
We gotta investigate,
What was your interaction like with the police?
I was on him. Check this person out and this person out. I am the mother of Lorenzen Wright.
I mean, that's a mother's love for their child.
Oh my God, when I heard that story,
I didn't know what was going on. I felt like I was in a twilight zone.
Is it possible that his friends, people who knew him and loved him, might not have known about this other side?
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency?
To actually hear the 911 call is blood curdling.
and you hear gunshot.
You hear that dispatcher say hello over and over again.
Hello? Hello?
You hear the gunshots and you hear silence.
I don't have nothing but gunshots.
That 911 call and what would come after would start a mystery in the city of Memphis that would transfix it for more than a decade.
It was the whodunit of all cases in Memphis history.
Describe Memphis to me.
Great city, great town, culture.
I think Memphis.
Elvis Presley even recorded the song Memphis, Tennessee about his hometown.
Long distance information, give me Memphis, Tennessee.
But I think of the blues. I think of B.B. King, I think of Beale Street. Memphis is the birthplace of the blues and rock and roll.
People in Memphis love to talk about the music. What they don't like to talk about as much is the crime.
Every time you turn the TV on, you hear of someone being murdered.
3 people were shot and 1 man died.
Being robbed.
An attempted robbery led to shots being fired.
A stab, a shot.
But the shooting took place on
It's
Chestnut.
an ongoing thing, man.
Memphis has always been this city of haves and have-nots.
Probably 30 to 40% of our people are below the poverty line. And Memphis has had its share of crime through the years.
These disparities, both racial and economic, they're still there in Memphis.
But one thing brings Memphis together, and that's basketball.
Basketball bridged a racial divide in Memphis.
It's one of those binding things that brings people together from all walks of life.
You gotta understand, people from Memphis, they just love whoever plays for them. So imagine if that player is homegrown.
Trail by 5, dribble drive, left hand followed by Lorenzen Wright.
That love then just becomes off the charts. This is why what happened to Lorenzen Wright was such a big deal. It's why I went there, to really sit down and talk to the people who knew him best. Who is Lorenzen Wright?
Lorenzen Wright was one of the best human beings that ever drew breath on this earth.
A lot of good basketball players come out of here. He was one who really made it big.
It was even noted on TV broadcasts.
He come to Memphis as a superstar, so his name was all over the media, it was all over the press.
He stood out. He was a hometown hero.
My name is Deborah Marion, and I am the mother of Lorenzen Wright.
Describe what it was like bringing Lorenzen into this world.
Ooh, honey. First of all, he was a big child. He couldn't just lay in my lap, because he was just too long.
So he was so long his head came off your knees.
Yes.
His mother had him at a very young age, and he was raised by his mother and grandmother within the same home.
Lorenzen's mom and dad were never married, and Lorenzen's dad, Herb, didn't live in the family home, but he was still a big part of Lorenzen's life.
By 7th, 8th grade, he was already playing with the high school team. And that's when they decided to move to get him around better competition.
Literally everywhere, they were talking about Lorenzen, even in high school. Yes.
So Lorenzen decides that he's going to go to Memphis State.
The folks in Memphis love it when Cincinnati comes a-calling. A sellout crowd expected tonight at the Pyramid.
Lorenzen drew people to the Coliseum to watch basketball. They didn't know anything about basketball.
The entire city was just buzzing with the excitement of him playing for the college.
Continues to go to, look at Lorenzen Wright on the jam.
Lorenzen was an absolute force on the court.
Exciting, athletic, big.
He loved people. He loved children. He was just a big baby.
He was a yes sir, yes ma'am person. He was raised right. That was Lorenzen.
He always had that big smile with him. That smile will just light you away. It would always get anybody.
He was only in Memphis a couple of years before he went to the NBA.
Now it's the time for me to accept the challenge of playing with the best basketball players in the nation.
That NBA draft was on TV.
The Los Angeles Clippers select Lorenzen Wright from the University of Memphis.
Memphis just exploded. We were so happy, so joyous.
It felt like we all got drafted. We just went crazy.
He was an instant millionaire, and the Clippers would make the playoffs in Lorenzen's rookie season.
It was definitely life-changing for him.
People started calling him the Howl, because after he would score or dunk, he would let off this huge howl, like he was a wolf howling at the moon.
The transition out to California was a very, very big move. Money was no object.
It was a culture shock. Memphis is a big city, but it's a big southern city, and it's not like Los Angeles.
A few years later, that didn't matter. Lorenzen Wright was going back home.
Join me in welcoming Lorenzen Wright.
To be able to play high school ball, to play college ball, and then to play in the NBA in front of your hometown, I don't know if it gets any better than that.
The whole town is excited to have Lorenzen back, and he shows his gratitude by spreading his wealth around.
He is that proverbial guy that would take the shirt off his own back and give it away.
He took care of his childhood friends a lot, right? What would he do for them?
Cars for him and everything. Let him stay with him.
His house was the spot to hang out in. It was like Disneyland at his house.
He had a gigantic pool in the back, the number of bedrooms he had, the entertainment. It was really, really nice.
And he purchased his mother a home literally 3 minutes away.
At one point, he buys you a house. What did that feel like for you?
Oh, my, look at my baby. Look at my baby.
The little shortcut from Lorenzen's house to his mom's house was a little road.
Didn't nobody else's parent live on one end and the child live on the other. That was our road, our little cut through.
It's called Callus Cutoff. Callus Cutoff.
It's not a road you want to drive down there. No lights.
That was a road that if you didn't know it was there, you didn't know it was there.
It's in the city, but it's actually just feels like you're out in the country. I mean, heavy woods on both sides. If you're driving, you just want to drive on through it. You don't want to stop.
Lorenzen had driven that shortcut maybe hundreds of times, and nothing had ever happened. He probably never thought for a moment that it might be dangerous.
And then, out of the blue, Lorenzen Wright went missing.
Police have joined in the search for missing NBA player Lorenzen Wright as his family is starting to fear the worst.
This is a millionaire. He's a basketball player. If he's missing, he doesn't want us to know where he is.
It was a fairy tale Cinderella kind of story that's supposed to have a happy ending.
That was the biggest mistake he ever made in his life. I think Lorenzen's strength came from the work ethic that his father instilled in him. On the court, he was a beast. Off the court, he was just a meek and mild individual.
So really, basketball was Lorenzen's entire life, really. Lorenzen met his wife through basketball.
Cheryl came into the picture his junior year of high school. He met her over the summer playing AAU basketball, and her dad was his coach.
golden brown skin, beautiful smile. She looked really good, very sexy.
She was easy on the eyes. I don't think he had never, ever came in contact with anyone that looked like Shara. I mean, she had all the goods.
We would say she knew she was fine and you didn't have to tell her.
There is a discrepancy about exactly when they started dating. Depending on who you talk to, she was in college when he was in high school.
He's a junior in high school, and here he is dating a junior in college, you know? He thought he was big time then.
They became friends, stayed in contact, and a few years later, that's when the relationship went from a friendship to a romantic relationship.
It was almost like he was just blind with love, right?
Yes. That girl crazy. She put moves on him like karate chop that they don't do in Mississippi.
I was hearing that Shara was wanting to get pregnant and to marry Lorenzen, assuming that he was going to be this great NBA basketball player.
When she saw Lorenzen, she saw a future with a millionaire.
Some of the people closest to Lorenzen see Shara as a gold digger.
So, were you concerned?
Very. He was listening on us, and I kind of like cooled down because I said, if I gotta like her a little bit, you know, to keep my son close to me.
You didn't try to disrupt the relationship because he loved her.
Exactly.
Deborah and Cheryl, they never got along. These two, they never liked each other. When she got pregnant, he was excited about it. You know, obviously his parents wasn't.
I don't think this was a situation where she was chasing Lorenzen and eventually wore him down to be with her. I think, if anything, it was the other way around.
So while we're in college doing the fraternity thing, she was about to give birth to Lorenzen Jr. at the time.
In between class and practice time, he would go see his baby.
Some of his friends and family feel that Shara has trapped him.
She knew once she had a child, it was over, marriage, because he wanted to be in the house with his child.
And at that point, you knew that she was going to get married to him.
Yes.
It was a couple years later after they got married. Of course, he had always told us that he wanted a big family.
As Lorenzen's NBA career blossoms, so does his family. He has a son, Lorenzen Jr., a daughter, Lauren, twins, Lamar and Shamar, Sophia, Lawson, and a daughter, Sierra, who died tragically of SIDS.
That could take a toll on any marriage, even a good one.
Family was everything to him.
For Lorenzen, his kids was everything to him. He spent his whole life, and everything he valued was based on his kids and his love for his kids.
What were those early days in the NBA? What was the marriage like between Shara and Lorenzen?
It was good.
The two of them were living well together. They were getting along.
Yes.
For an NBA player in a marriage, there's good news and bad news. The good news, you're making millions of dollars to support your wife and your family.
But they had money. They had money, and they could go and buy things. And he loved cars, and she loved jewelry. And, you know, they spent a lot of money.
Just as fast as he was making money, money was being spent.
The bad news, you're on the road a lot, and that comes with temptations.
He's a ladies' man. He loved the ladies. The ladies loved him, too.
And he would tell me every time the plane touched down, they'd be already there waiting. They were always trying to connect, trying to find out where the hookup places would be after the game.
Now, do I know that he cheated? Yes, hell, I know. I was with him half of the time.
When did they start struggling and why?
When he caught her with that guy.
He caught her being unfaithful.
Yes.
And that's when things started breaking down.
Yes.
The infidelity happened, to be fair, on both sides. So the marriage was complicated.
I think what happened to the marriage was that, you know, they grew apart. Maybe there was some greed issues there. He would say things like, man, it's just always about money with her.
Did they have a lot of fights?
I've seen the evidence of some pretty bad brawls.
Told me the marriage ended because he didn't trust Shara anymore, she felt the same about him, but they were still going to try to find a way to raise these kids.
At that point, how was his relationship with his kids?
Fine.
He said this, Shara is the one who filed for the divorce, not Lorenzen. But he was not going to fight for it because he wanted it over with as well.
The post-divorce life between Shara and Lorenzen Wright appeared to be routine until that one July day when he went missing.
At that point, we said bye. They get out of the car, I drive away, and that's the last time I see my friend.
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency?
And when police would begin to pull back the curtain on Lorenzen's private life, the city of Memphis would learn some troubling new stories about its hometown hero.
There's another side to Lorenzen that you all don't know about.
It's the summer of 2010. Lorenzen Wright is living in Atlanta with his buddy Mike G.
When Lorenzen and Cheryl were divorced, he ended up moving to Atlanta. So I went and moved in on him, and we just had good time.
By this time, his NBA playing days are over. But what's not over, apparently, is his relationship with his ex.
Even though Shara and Lorenzen were divorced, they had certainly a physical relationship.
They still had an intimate relationship.
But it was more than just sex. People who know them say they were still in love and were even thinking of starting over.
Lorenzen did propose to Shara after they were divorced. The children saw him ask her to marry him, and Shara had said yes.
So on this one particular weekend that summer, Lorenzen's coming back to Memphis to visit. Shara calls him and asks him to go to a dance recital for their daughter, Lauren. And it turns out his sister, Denotra, is having a baby shower that weekend, too. So he's got a lot going on.
I drove Lorenzen to the airport and to fly out to Memphis. As I look back and now, I think that something was going on because Lorenzen was always on edge that whole week, which I thought was unusual.
Whenever Lorenzen came to Memphis, Phil would be the first person that he would call.
Completely unexpected, out of the blue. He calls me and says, "Hey, bud, I'm in town. Let's hang out." Just bought a new vehicle and I wanted him to ride in it, and we rode all around the city. He took a picture on my phone of himself that evening.
To look at that photo, you would never know that Lorenzen Wright's life was in serious danger.
Just after 10 p.m. on this hot July evening, temperatures just now dropping below 90 degrees. Doesn't look like we're going to have any relief in sight. This is Tim Van Horn, and you're listening to WREC.
Just a few hours later, a 911 call comes into the nearby town of Germantown, Tennessee.
Germantown is just east of Memphis. It's one of the smaller municipalities right outside of Memphis.
It's a very short call, and you hear a desperate voice on there. You hear a series of gunshots.
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency? Hello? 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 Sound like I'm nothing but gunshots.
There's no caller ID, so the dispatcher doesn't know where the call is coming from specifically. They thought this call was a hang-up.
There was no follow-up.
Operator picks up the phone.
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency?
And you hear gunshots.
Hello?
To me, that calls for immediate response.
Like, you leave it alone. You leave it alone?
For our report, 2020 reached out to the Germantown Police Department to ask why they didn't immediately follow up on that 911 call. They declined to speak with us. But at the time, a department review concluded that dispatchers properly followed procedures.
It was an opportunity lost. because on that call is the last time anybody would hear Lorenzen's voice.
I probably called him 4 or 5 times that night. And I texted him about 3 or 4 times. And I just really figured that, maybe he had fallen asleep.
He was supposed to be coming to the baby shower. I kept calling him all that day and he didn't answer the phone.
I was getting married July 20th in the Virgin Islands. And so he said that he was going to come over and be my best man. I get a phone call from one of my other great friends saying, hey man, Lorenzen is missing.
His friends weren't really concerned in the beginning because that was just Lorenzen.
It's like still living that NBA life. Those guys, they'd hop on a plane, go to Vegas.
Not hearing from him, it wasn't out of the norm.
But when Lorenzen's mother found out that he wasn't even calling his daughter Lauren back, that was too much for her. She filed a missing persons report.
When I first got the news, I got a phone call. Did you hear that Lorenzen was missing? Initially, I was not alarmed. I'm thinking if he's missing, he doesn't want us to know where he is. It's on purpose. I became concerned when I saw the concern in her face and in her voice.
When that missing persons report is made officially known, it becomes a major news story.
Developing tonight, a former player for both the Memphis Tigers and the Grizzlies has disappeared, and now his family is worried about his safety.
Talk just spread all over Memphis. Where's Lorenzen? What's going on?
So the Memphis Police Department starts a missing persons investigation. When somebody goes missing, you have to look at their circumstances at the time. They look at their inner circle. Is anybody new? Did they owe anybody any money?
What was Lorenzen's financial condition after basketball?
It was not good. It was not good at all, and that really affected him greatly.
Lorenzen Wright made as much as $55 million playing basketball. But because he and Cheryl were spending like crazy, there actually wasn't that much left.
So to compensate, he always had some side businesses.
I think he was doing the side businesses just to, try to create other streams of income for when he did retire.
He wants to invest in something else, have other things going on, His dad ran his sports cafe for him. He also had a car detailing shop.
Among those off-the-court business relationships, there would be one relationship that would come back to haunt Lorenzen Wright, a man named Bobby Cole.
Bobby Cole was a high-level drug dealer. How would Lorenzen be connected to a drug dealer? But Cole was not only a drug dealer, he was also a race car driver, and Lorenzen, as it turned out, loved cars. At some point they meet, and Cole agrees to buy 2 of Lorenzen's cars.
I remember him telling me, man, I sold the guy my cars. Now, what the guy was doing, I did not know.
The feds had actually looked into this long before Lorenzen Wright disappeared to see if any of his transactions with Bobby Cole involved drugs or drug money.
And the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, actually investigated that connection, interviewed Bobby Cole. They didn't find any connection.
But those drug rumors would actually start swirling again, this time when police interviewed his ex-wife, Cheryl.
She also told law enforcement that about 6 weeks earlier, she had gotten a visit from some unknown individuals that wanted to do Lorenzen some harm.
Cheryl Wright, in talking to investigators, claims that she saw Lorenzen leaving with a man she didn't know, carrying a box with drugs.
Kind of painting this portrait of a guy who's troubled, who's lost all his money. He's trying to make money illegally.
Is it possible that people who knew him and loved him might not have known about this other side that involved drugs?
Well, it's possible, but he told me about everything that he was dealing with. And I believe that if he had been doing that, I believe he would have told me.
This whole idea that he was involved in drugs, what did you make of that?
Y'all don't want me to say what I want to say.
But the police are on the brink of a breakthrough.
The investigation made a dramatic turn when Memphis police found out about that Germantown 911 call.
That revelation eventually leads investigators to that desolate road, the Calais Cutoff, the shortcut from Lorenzen's house to his mom's. And there, they will make a chilling discovery.
Since I've been growing, I've been strong and tall. I ain't ever met nobody that could keep me on a barroom wall.
Lorenzen Wright's disappearance was all over Memphis TV.
Lorenzen Wright has not been seen since Sunday.
One local news crew even got his ex-wife Shara to come to the door.
He was fine. And he's fine now, and I'm not gonna believe anything other than that. He's fine now.
In those days after Lorenzen went missing, his friends are all trying to come up with plausible explanations as to where Lorenzen might be, that maybe he is fine. But there's one thing that keeps coming up, one thing that sticks out when they think back about the night he disappeared. In the hours after Lorenzen took that selfie in his friend's car, they remember that Lorenzen and Shara had a fight.
That evening, Phil and Lorenzen had been planning a father-son night with their boys. But suddenly, Lorenzen gets a call from Shara, and it was unpleasant.
I could hear Shara say, no, you bring him home now. He was like, okay, all right, fine. I don't want to argue with you. And so we drove on to the house.
Yeah, he was dropped off at Shara's house. He was just gonna go see Shara.
And when we pull up at the house, he said, I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna calm her down and I'll call you later and then we can go out.
So Phil drives away, having no clue that this is the last time he'll see his friend. Because a few hours later,
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency?
that 911 call, which might not have been investigated then,
Well, I have nothing but gunshots.
but it is now. 9 days after Lorenzen went missing, police are all over it.
The call was revealed because they went back and checked their records, and they found that they had this desperate call from a man, 9 days earlier.
Once the 911 supervisors realized that there was a call made on that night, they did a triangulation and found the area that the call was made from. It's a rural area, a wooded area, not a lot of traffic.
And when police visit that wooded area, their worst fears are realized. They find the body.
Police in Memphis, Tennessee have found the body of former NBA player Lorenzen Wright.
Of course, it was a huge story on the local news.
They found him almost instantly. His body was found. There wasn't much left of it because it had been out there 9 days.
Even if you knew Lorenzen well, there was no way in the world that you could have identified his remains as him.
The condition of his body was shocking, that he had literally melted in the hot summer sun.
The 6'11", 255-pound NBA center was just 57 pounds when his body was found. Badly decomposed, investigators say he was shot at least 5 times.
When did you find out that he was dead?
When they found his body.
When I got that phone call, I just threw down the phone and just broke down,
It was really, really painful.
Me and my girlfriend jumped in her car and flew over there so quick. I was trying to get down there where he was because I wanted to walk his last step. Because me and him was like this.
So you went to the crime scene. It was as if you wanted to find a clue.
Right.
By literally walking in his footsteps.
Yes.
You could see a mother's anguish in real time as news cameras capture her desperation to see her son.
Lorenzen Wright's mother was ushered behind the crime tape by MPD investigators. She was visibly upset but did not speak to the media before leaving the scene.
They had her on the news. Where's my baby? Screaming out, where's my baby?
Did the police let you get into the crime scene?
They let for a little bit, but they wouldn't let me get all where he was. They let me get under the tape. I went under the tape anyway. Of course, they tried to stop me.
Did you see your son?
Nope. They wouldn't let me get that far.
This area is woodsy. It's quiet. It's really remote. That area was also not very far from that shortcut where Lorenzen Wright once lived near his mother, the Callis Cutoff.
The Callis Cutoff? That was a shortcut Lorenzen had taken hundreds of times. It's a strange place for his body to show up. Was it a clue? No one was concentrating on it in that moment.
No one was talking about the fact that, that he lived nearby.
The body turning up there, does it narrow the scope of people who were involved in it, or does it widen it? It's still very hard to tell.
Publicly, yeah, there was a lot of talk about other people being involved.
You talked to people and asked, did you know anybody, any reason why anybody would want to hurt Lorenzen? Was he involved in illegal activity?
They also found shell casings and actual bullets.
Turns out police found shells from 2 different caliber weapons. This is a critical piece of evidence. It means that more than one gun was used in the shooting.
Lorenzen was shot 5 times, but he was shot with 2 different guns. So we got another shooter.
But then it got really real to us that he's gone. Somebody has killed Lorenzen.
I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, who could have killed my friend? Why would somebody want him to die?
The answers wouldn't come quickly. In fact, it would take a book written 5 years later to shed new light on the case. A book written by none other than Shara herself.
And then this book comes out, which almost appears to give clues.
We honor and remember Lorenzen Wright.
Lorenzen's funeral was almost a state affair here in Memphis.
It was held at FedEx Forum, a place where he once played basketball as an NBA player. And now it was where thousands of people came out to mourn the loss of their hometown hero.
They put together a beautiful ceremony. His pledge brothers, we were all pallbearers for the funeral.
I was asked to do the eulogy.
His smile was infectious, his work ethic unmatched, his generosity prolific, and his commitment unswerving.
The thing that I remember the most about the funeral is Shara hugging me and saying, "Thank you for such a beautiful eulogy." Ren would have loved that.
It was such a tragic situation, seeing his kids suffer like that, knowing they'll never see their father again.
This tragic moment, that funeral, it morphs into this, whodunit, because no one knew who did it.
At the beginning of a case, you have to remain objective and you have to let the evidence lead you. You have to prepare yourself to be surprised sometimes.
This is now essentially a cold case because 9 days have passed. A body has been in sweltering heat, which degrades evidence tremendously.
The killers had a 9-day head start on us. There were no witnesses, so this was not an easy case at all.
Because in these kinds of things, the spouse is always a suspect. They're looking at Shara hard.
My number one suspect was the person that I hear everybody else talking about, was Shara.
You were suspicious of Shara at this point?
Yes.
Okay, did you tell the police?
Yes.
What did they say to you?
We got to investigate.
We thought she was being forthcoming with information, and in the midst of that, she chose to lawyer up.
Lawyering up may not look good, but it doesn't mean she had anything to do with the man's murder. You need evidence if you're going to arrest someone.
And so far, there is no evidence that points to Shara.
And she denies involvement on a local interview.
If I knew who did this to Lorenzen, you would know who did this to Lorenzen.
When Shara was not arrested, it's like, well, maybe she didn't do it. Then started thinking about, well, okay, what about the drug thing? Maybe that went wrong some kind of way.
They were absolutely looking for guys who had come into Memphis, hitmen, to kill Lorenzen, and that just didn't make any sense at all. If a guy owes you a lot of money, what point is it killing him? You'll never get your money back by killing him.
We did look into it. I mean, if the ex-wife is telling us this, we have to investigate it.
What was your interaction like with the police?
I was on them.
How often did you go down there?
Every day.
Every day? Saying, I want you guys to get on this and find his killer.
And this person did this, and check this person out, and this person out.
We just say mama bears take care of their cubs. She was relentless in her pursuit of justice for him.
not to let her son's life and legacy just go down the drain. I mean, that's a mother's love for their child.
Deborah Marion says she'll keep fighting until her son's killers are held accountable.
I'm never, ever, ever, ever gonna give up.
Every anniversary of his murder, she did a candlelight vigil.
Deborah Marion says the vigil is for family, friends, and the public to come together and remember Lorenzen.
Every birthday, she would release balloons at his gravesite.
My son ain't did nothing to nobody to be murdered.
But all of Deborah's efforts aren't making any difference. For years, the police don't arrest anyone, and Shara seems to have moved on with her life.
After his death, she became more involved in the church that she had already been a part of and did actually become a pastor in that church.
To me, of course, my own prejudice admitted she was no preacher. Her lifestyle had not changed. And she was just always after the money.
The people who want to accuse Shara of being involved in Lorenzen's murder point to the fact that she did receive $1 million payout from his life insurance policy.
Shara ended up in a long, protracted legal battle with Lorenzen's father, Herb, and he claimed that she was spending money on extravagant items and not on the children.
I didn't work from the time we separated.
She was buying fancy cars, and it got pretty dirty. It was all of them in court, fighting over the money.
That's common for family members to fight over proceeds and to end up in court. So that didn't have any significant impact on the case.
But an investigator never knows when something odd will come up. And in this case, something odd and unexpected does come up. Shara writes a book.
Cheap dime store novel type of book that is very curious, has a lot of clues about what happened.
The book is called Mr. Tell Me Anything. It's the story of a woman who has a tumultuous marriage with an NBA player. It's supposed to be fictitious, but it doesn't seem that way.
It's almost like a confession that falls short of fully confessing, and she wants publicity. So I interviewed her in July of 2015 for about an hour and a half. Sure, I'm going to need you to speak up because I'm worried about the background noise.
Commercial appeal reporter Mark Paraschia conducts an extensive interview with Shara at a restaurant called J. Alexander's. It's a busy, trendy restaurant chain in Memphis.
Let me ask you this, Shara. The book, why did you write it? What are you hoping to accomplish?
The marriage, you go through your ups and downs. I just believe that when the downs become more overwhelming and there's more downs than ups, then that's the time to kind of go back and see which one outweighs the other.
In the interview, Shara explains that the NBA player depicted in the book is abusive, not just verbally, but physically. And she claims the character is based on Lorenzen.
Lorenzen had a problem with keeping his hands to himself. Or Mr. Tell Me Anything, this character did. And I grew him from Lorenzen. I produced him from experiences with Lorenzen. And so, he had a problem with that.
You're planning a sequel too, right? If I read that right.
Yeah.
When is that coming out?
It's 90% done. It's going to take you all the way up to Mr. Tell Me Anything's death and just a little bit past it.
Is Mr. I don't want to give away your book, but is Mr. Tell Me Anything murdered?
Oh, yes, he is.
That was a kind of chilling moment in the recording. But see, it gives Paraschia an invitation to ask about the real life circumstances surrounding Lorenzen's death.
Any idea who did this? Or
I don't know.
She missed her husband. She wanted them to find the killers, and that there's no reason for anybody to suspect her. Did you have anything to do with his murder or his disappearance?
I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm an author. And the police should find his killer. For my name to be even in the same sentence or something like that, I'm a minister of the Lord, and I've never been in any type of trouble or anything. I'm a mother, an author, and a wife.
She just flat denies it. To me, she had was very convincing.
But Shara would soon appear very convincing to another reporter who comes to do a story on her. His name is Kelvin Cowens, and he's about to commit a cardinal sin for a professional journalist.
And I was like, she's tall, she's beautiful, I'm in trouble. We started dating immediately.
Kelvin Cowens may believe he's found true love, just as a Memphis dive team finds something critical at the bottom of this lake.
And the Grizzlies has disappeared, and now his family is worried about his safety.
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency? Hello?
This is almost like a tale out of a Southern Gothic novel. Greed, jealousy, false trails, envy, cold-blooded murder is compelling on so many levels.
It's a soap opera gone awry.
Wright was found in a wooded area just outside Memphis.
This is not only a news story, but it's a sports celebrity story. It's a murder story all wrapped into one.
It's just one of those things that I could never put together. How does such an amazing guy end up dead and in a field?
It was a case that until we solved it, it was going to hunt us. It was literally going to hunt us.
But his mother, God bless her heart, she continued to keep it in the forefront, to keep it going.
I'm never, ever, ever, ever gonna give up.
But Deborah wouldn't give up on it.
She is absolutely the heroine. She is the hero of this story. She harassed literally the police department every day.
She kept the heat on the police. She was in the news media for years, criticizing them for not doing enough to finding out who killed her son.
She basically told me once I became the director, you're going to solve my son's murder. And you're not going to get rid of me.
You let everybody know that you would not rest until your son's killer was found.
Yes.
I wanted to solve it really, really bad. You know, not only for the city, for Lorenzen's mom and for his kids. I've never seen a mom to be that emotionally distraught over the murder of her child. And I've investigated a lot of murders. She was heartbroken. She was heartbroken, and it was very difficult for me to watch.
So while the case has gone cold, Lorenzen's ex-wife, Shara, has not withdrawn from the public, and many people are suspicious of that. The book she's written, supposedly fictitious, called Mr. Tell Me Anything, it's making headlines and raising eyebrows.
And it seemed to garner the attention of one man in particular, Kelvin Cowens. Cowens was a journalist who interviewed Shara about her book. He was one of the people I really wanted to talk to when I visited Memphis because of how close he said he got to her. What is Mr. Tell Me Anything?
For me, it was the inside look at an NBA wife.
What does the man do to the woman in this book?
Oh, man. He breaks her. He breaks her mind, he breaks her will. According to the book, affairs, there is some domestic violence in there.
I believe that the stories that were described in that book are based on what really happened, yes.
It does make Lorenzen look like a really bad guy.
In this book, there are specific descriptions of violence. And what do you make of that?
I just don't believe it. I think that is purely fiction.
If he was all of that, why she stayed with him so long? She could have got a divorce at any time and got plenty of money. Girl, please. I don't believe nothing she say. If she tell me that her hair is black, I said, no, it's orange.
I just believed it. I was like, she's bearing all.
Kelvin Cowens doesn't just believe her. He says he was romantically falling for her. It's something that, as a journalist, he admits was crossing a line.
While they were dating, and even after they moved to Houston, she completely convinces him that she had nothing to do with Lorenzen's murder.
Well, I'm like, if she had done something, they'd have her by now. I mean, I would have never moved away with her if I thought she was a killer.
Shara moved out of Memphis because she was tired of the suspicion and all the negative publicity she was receiving here.
Did anybody know who she was in Houston? Did anybody treat her in a certain way because of that?
No one treated her different. No one treated the kids different. It just wasn't a subject. We were embraced in Houston.
She moves to Houston, appears to live a quiet life, but one problem, Kelvin said he never could quite get used to Shara's love for money.
That was like, oh my God, not about money again.
Cowan says they started arguing because he says long after the fight over the insurance money, Shara still wanted more from the estate, and he claims it blew apart their relationship. Why was it the last straw?
Greed. I cannot believe that, your apex of life is still, how much more money can I get?
And you couldn't live with that?
I couldn't.
The relationship ends. Shara moves to California with the kids to be near her brother, and Kelvin moves back to Memphis. Neither of them are aware that the Memphis police are about to take a new look at Lorenzen's murder.
They call it Operation Rebound. They want to rebound, to use a basketball term, go through the evidence one more time, find that one key break.
I received a phone call from the Memphis Police Department, and he said, we want to run through everybody's story again.
By now, Tony Armstrong has left the department, but he's still following the case closely.
I immediately thought, okay, somebody has gotten themselves in a tight spot, and they're starting to talk.
The police suddenly announced, we found the murder weapon in a lake in Mississippi.
News about finding at least one of the guns was all over local news.
7 years later, the gun the killer may have used was found in a lake in Walnut, Mississippi in Tippah County.
How did you hear about them finding the gun in the lake?
They called me.
The news got around town. They found the gun.
And I'm like, what? You found after all this time, how? And now the next thing I'm thinking, okay, now who was it? Who killed Lorenzen?
And that's when this man enters the story. A man who cops say is the whole reason they found that gun in the lake in the first place. Because he claims he knows who put it there.
You mean what? Are you kidding me? Are you actually kidding me?
There is a Bible verse that says you can be sure that your sin will find you out. I knew someone was going to talk, and I knew for certain it was going to involve Shara.
The rebirth of the Lorenzen Wright murder investigation largely is built around Jimmy Martin.
Jimmy Martin was a 34-year-old former rap artist who went by the name of Trickster. He was also Shara Wright's cousin. Martin was convicted in a totally unrelated case with killing his girlfriend. But according to prosecutors, that's when he approached cops with a story about what he says happened to Lorenzen.
It was in between the conviction for second-degree murder and his sentencing that Jimmy Martin offered the story.
I can see him saying, you know what, I'm in big trouble. I need to give them some information that's going to lessen my time.
He meets with investigators and he has a story to tell.
So what you are about to hear is what prosecutors said in court is Jimmy Martin's story about what he says happened to Lorenzen. Jimmy tells investigators that Shara Wright is involved in Lorenzen's murder with one other person, a man named Billy Ray Turner.
Billy was the guy that cut the grass.
Billy Ray Turner was a landscaper, a yard man, who happened to be a deacon in a small country church that Shara attended.
Here's what Jimmy Martin supposedly told prosecutors about that landscaper, Billy Ray Turner.
Jimmy Martin says that he had once gone to Atlanta with Billy Ray Turner to try to kill Lorenzen. Remember, Lorenzen had moved to Atlanta after his divorce in 2010 and moved in with his old buddy, Mike Gibson.
I had no clue, no awareness of anything like this.
Prosecutors say Shara was also in Atlanta around this time.
There's underpinnings to Jimmy Martin's story because, she did show up down there.
I can remember her coming to Atlanta for the first time to see the condo. Very unusual. She had never been down there.
And while Shara was there at the condo, Jimmy alleges, she was setting the stage for a murder.
Jimmy Martin says Shara Wright left the window open so he and Billy Ray Turner could go inside to kill Lorenzen Wright.
In court, prosecutors detail step by step what Jimmy Martin says happened next.
Billy Ray and Jimmy Martin go through a window and they're looking for Lorenzen, but they can't find him.
Turns out that Lorenzen wasn't even home at that moment.
I was there laying on the couch. Had I had woke up, or had Lorenzen been there, we'd both be dead.
The story Jimmy Martin tells investigators is that there's another man asleep on the couch, so they don't go through with the plan.
With that attempt foiled, prosecutors allege a new plot to kill Lorenzen was hatched. This time, they say, unfortunately, it worked.
The body of former pro basketball player Lorenzen Wright has apparently been found in Memphis. Sources say it appeared Wright had been shot several times.
Martin claims to investigators that a few days after Lorenzen's death, Shara and Turner confessed to him that they murdered Lorenzen. And that he helped them clean up the crime scene. Prosecutors said in court that Martin told cops that a metal detector was used to try to find a gun that was dropped during the murder there. Martin claims that he and Turner drove to Walnut, Mississippi, where he alleges Turner threw a gun in a lake. That lake is about 45 miles from Memphis, and in 2017, that's where the FBI conducted that search and found a gun at the bottom.
They were able to do forensics on this pistol that was recovered and determined that those shell casings came from that gun.
Even though police know that there were 2 weapons used in the shooting, this evidence alone is huge.
Developing right now, new information in the unsolved murder of Lorenzen Wright. Authorities now say a gun found over the summer may be the one used in the crime.
They're announcing, we found this gun. Why are they doing that? The reason they were doing that is they were telegraphing to the suspects to put them in a panic mode.
So law enforcement starts monitoring Shara and Billy Ray's cell phones and allege they learn incriminating information.
Law enforcement is able to record those calls.
Next thing you know, boom, there's this guy on TV. They're handcuffing.
46-year-old Billy Turner sits behind bars this morning, arrested at a Carterville gas station.
It was a standard arrest. There was no incidents to it. This person who, for the past 25 years, had not had any sort of troubles.
A real nice guy, always just laughing. No, he never showed aggression or anything like that.
I'm just like, who is Billy Ray Turner? Who is that?
I've never heard about Billy Ray Turner. The only thing that I knew, and I ended up putting 2 and 2 together, is that Lorenzen, he told me, Cheryl's sleeping with everybody in Memphis. She even sleeping with her gardener, which was Billy Ray.
Continuing coverage for you now this midday about the suspect charged with killing former Memphis basketball player Lorenzen Wright. Billy Turner entered a not guilty plea on charges that he murdered Wright more than 7 years ago.
Emotions were extremely heavy in Billy Ray Turner's first appearance in a Shelby County courtroom.
And these hearings were televised, right?
Yes.
That's how high the interest was.
Yes. They would break into the regular day programming. It was like the big thing here.
New developments this midday in the 2010 murder case of Memphis basketball star Lorenzen Wright.
When I saw him, I knew instantly she had used him because that's not what she want. He ain't had no money. She don't deal with no grass cutter.
Good morning, sir. You have a mother who searched for answers for all of these years and then finally associate a face with the person responsible for taking my son's life. and all the emotions just came out.
I jumped up and I asked him, how could you have murdered my son?
Little did Deborah know this mystery in Memphis wasn't even close to being solved. It's Billy Ray Turner's arraignment, the first time anyone has ever gone before a judge in connection with Lorenzen Wright's murder.
The victim's mother was emotional at the sight of Billy Turner in court.
Lorenzen Wright's mother stands up in the middle of the proceedings and yells,
how could you have murdered my son? That's what I did, just happened.
The atmosphere was one of just, wow. The air seemed to be sucked out of the room at that point.
Why? Who are you? We don't know you. It's like a stranger killing somebody.
That's right. Step to the mic. And I could see the pain in her, and I saw how she expressed that pain to him. And I knew it was real.
Ms. Wright, I understand your pain, and you're not helping your son. You're not helping the administration of justice by engaging in that sort of an outcry. If that happens again, I would have to bar you from the courtroom, and I don't want to do that to you, Mrs. Wright. Do you have any questions, ma'am?
No, I told him what I wanted to.
But please don't do that again.
So I shut my mouth for the rest of the court.
Now the question is about Shara, who, remember, was living in California, but was never far from Deborah's mind.
We have Thursday night Bible study, and I got so emotional. I said, God, please get Cheryl Robinson right. Please. That's what I said that Thursday night. Friday, she was locked up.
Cheryl Wright Robinson was taken into custody last night in Riverside, California.
The news feed hit that said that she had been arrested for the murder of Lorenzen Wright, and I said, hot damn, they got her.
Cheryl Wright Robinson has been indicted for conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, criminal attempt first-degree murder, and first-degree murder for her ex-husband, Lorenzen Wright.
And I'm like, I just spent almost 3 years of my life with a killer.
They'd extradite her and bring her back. It was Memphis Police Department's one of their finest moments of finally putting this thing together.
Today in court, Shara Wright, right there behind me, pleaded not guilty to killing her husband.
Shara, basically, I think the reality of finally being caught really took the life out of her.
In an orange jumpsuit, Shara Wright shook her head as Judge Lee Coffey laid down the law.
Ms. Wright does appear to be an ongoing danger to Shelby County, Tennessee.
Judge Coffey gave Wright a $20 million bond.
She looked horrible.
This is a bizarre situation. Shara, who's been this sexy, beautiful person with a lot of money, a lot of boyfriends, she's now on her way to jail. This is not going to work for her. It's not uncommon for people to act in a bizarre way in jail, particularly the ones who've never been in jail.
She began to unravel.
According to Jail East staff, Wright berated workers, stripped off her clothes, and flooded a toilet.
She was acting very strangely. She had stripped naked and yelled out, "I'm going swimming."
Ms. Wright's behavior yesterday is absolutely shocking.
I don't think she's right mentally. I think that's why she said she was going swimming in this jail cell.
I think all the things that she was doing while in jail were all acts of her trying to plead insanity. I did not buy that at all.
There was a lot of speculation as to whether or not she was being theatrical or had legitimate claims of what she was going through.
In a stunning new development inside the Shelby County courtroom Wednesday morning, Shara Wright's attorney stepped down.
I'm not certain what happened between Shara and her former lawyers.
And a new legal team steps in.
Quite frankly, we found that Shara was easy to work with.
She had been prescribed some medication that altered her behavior. Once we were appointed on the case, her behavior had stabilized and she had no significant problems after that.
I'm excited. I think we can do well. A case like this does not come along every day. And we were honored to defend Shara.
The objective is to give us the fairest opportunity to present our defense in the case.
Meanwhile, Billy Ray Turner is lawyered up too. He brings in one of Memphis's most high-profile attorneys.
John Keith Perry is kind of a rising star criminal defense lawyer. This is one of his, big cases.
There's a substantial amount of investigating that needs to continue. I was contacted by the family of Mr. Turner, and I've been on this case now since the end of 2017. We've read and listened to, I think, just about all of the discovery. Now you compile notes, lay out your outlines, see the points of attack. I've never had a reason to regret representing Billy Ray Turner.
According to his attorney, Billy Ray Turner has constantly said he had no involvement in the murder of Lorenzen Wright. He stands by that then, and he stands by that now.
We think that if given a fair slate, Mr. Turner will walk out with me. I absolutely think that he did not do it.
Perry has several questions about the alleged case against Billy Ray Turner, starting with his connection to Shara.
Some of the things that I've heard through the community about this super romance, and that he would have been willing to jump bridges and over rivers or whatever. I haven't seen that.
And more importantly, Perry says, consider the source. He says the prosecution's case starts with Jimmy Martin's story. And his criminal history, according to Perry, makes him not credible.
Could he be the one that did it? Absolutely. With the statement that he gave, how he gave that statement, and the fact that he is a convicted murderer, yes, there's an absolutely a chance that he could have committed the act himself. Credibility-wise, he would be low on the totem pole, I think.
Maybe he's just trying to minimize his involvement in all this. He's flipped, he's turned a deal.
So far, there is no proof that Jimmy Martin received any benefit from cooperating in the Lorenzen Wright case. But we do know he's never been charged in connection with Wright's murder. Neither Martin nor prosecutors would talk with us. But now the stage was set for a climactic trial in the Lorenzen Wright murder. Did you expect these cases to lead to conviction? And did you expect that to happen fairly quickly?
Once the gun was found, I did.
No case is a slam dunk. No murder case is a slam dunk.
However, no one was prepared for what would actually happen next.
I walk to the assignment desk, and she hangs up the phone and frantically says, I just got a tip. Go down to the courthouse.
A significant development in the Lorenzen Wright murder case.
A gun found over the summer may be the one used in the crime.
Shara Wright Robinson was taken into custody.
Well, the buildup was huge. We were expecting probably a weeks to months long trial.
The judge is expected to rule this spring on a host of pretrial motions from Shara Wright's and Billy Turner's legal teams.
They were going to be tried together as co-defendants. That was my understanding.
If Shara and Billy Turner were tried together, our defense could be consistent.
I think that the evidence in the case that the state has, we're anxious to get before 12 jurors and see what they think.
Anytime you have multiple suspects, people are going to start throwing each other under the bus. And inevitably, it basically boils down to who can cut the deal first.
In the several months that Billy Ray Turner and Shara Wright appeared together as defendants, there was always a lingering question. Which of them could potentially plead first?
I thought Billy was gonna use his head. I thought he was gonna take the plea first.
It became evident to Junie and me that the state wanted to work out a deal with Billy Turner.
A surprise twist tonight in the Lorenzen Wright murder case.
Shara's lawyers say they realized that troubling sign in June of 2019 when Billy Ray was in court for another matter.
He's never said that he had a firearm related to killing anyone at all.
Billy Ray's between a rock and a hard place. He's got a gun charge unrelated to the Wright murder and faces up to 20 years behind bars if he's found guilty. He decides he's got only one choice: plead guilty to the gun charge.
Now, is that what you want to do, sir? Yes. Has anyone threatened you, promised you anything, put any force any pressure on you in order to get you to give up these rights and plead guilty, sir?
Billy's convicted felon in possession of a handgun trial was scheduled in June of 2019, but on trial date, he pled open to the court.
Upon your plea of guilty to indictment 1801702, a Class B felon have been a convicted felon in possession of a firearm, it is the judgment of this court, Mr. Turner, that you are guilty.
He pled open to the court. He doesn't know definitively what sentence he's going to get.
Shara's lawyers are seeing this play out, and they're really worried about it. Here's why. It's possible the judge could take pity on Billy Ray and reduce his sentence if he cooperates with authorities and testifies against Shara Wright.
His potential time was completely left up to the judge.
Thank you, sir. You step down from the witness stand, Mr. Turner.
That was highly unusual and to us indicated that he would be cooperating.
Shara's lawyers are not taking any chances. Her lawyers go to visit her in jail, and what they tell her would shock everyone. They say she needs to consider a plea deal.
We told her that if Billy testifies against you, it's going to be disastrous.
Get Shara Wright to the courtroom, please.
One morning, out of the blue, we get a frantic phone call into our newsroom, a tip from the courthouse. Shara Wright plans to plead guilty.
In a stunning twist and unscheduled appearance this morning, Shara Wright agreed to a plea deal in the murder case of her ex-husband, Memphis basketball star Lorenzen Wright.
She realized that I'm not willing to roll the dice. I'm not willing to take a gamble on this, and she cut the deal.
No one had any foresight or knowledge that they were going to do that.
You raise your right hand, please, ma'am. Do you solemnly swear or affirm?
Everybody was sitting on the edge of their chairs.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes. They wanted to see what was Shara's role in this.
We know Shara Wright is there to plead guilty, but we don't know entirely what she's pleading guilty to.
Ms. Wright, the agreement that you have to say is that you would plead guilty to the included charge in count 1 to facilitation of first-degree murder.
In the deal, the 48-year-old pleaded guilty to 2 counts, facilitation of first-degree murder and facilitation of attempted first-degree murder.
Facilitating.
Yes, sir.
Facilitating the murder. I've never heard of that charge.
In the plea deal, Shara Wright pleads guilty to the lesser crimes of plotting the murder, but not the actual first-degree murder charge.
You are asking this court to find you guilty without a trial and to set this punishment which has been recommended on your case. Now, is that what you want to do, Ms. Wright?
That is correct.
She admitted that she had facilitated Lorenzen's murder.
But she doesn't name Turner or any accomplices in pleading guilty. When you heard that Shara was entering a plea, what did you think?
She's trying to outsmart him. I think she just decided to bite the bullet, so to speak, on the murder and to figure a way to get the less amount of time that she could.
Prosecutors would not comment to 2020 about the case.
She knows she was finna go down, 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 way down. She wasn't gonna get no few years. She gonna get some lifetime.
Ms. Wright, it is the judgment of this court that you are guilty. This court sets your punishment at 30 years confinement in the Tennessee Department of Corrections.
She received a 30-year sentence, of which she'll serve 30% before release eligibility.
I think our prosecutors failed us, those of us that love him. I think she played him.
My reaction was, I was sick in the stomach. I'm like, are you kidding me? She may only do 9 years. Lorenzen, he lost the rest of his life, and she may only have to do 9 years. I felt really bad, felt really sick. I said, that's not fair.
It's not about fairness.
Ms. Wright, you step down from the witness stand. Thank you, ma'am.
I think it's a concept the public wants to believe in. When the state and the defense comes to a negotiated plea agreement, then generally speaking, the court will approve it.
If the sentence surprised a lot of people in court, though, what came next was even more shocking.
Ms. Marion, when you were first in court, you had some things that you wanted to say.
Yes.
A mother is about to confront the woman who arranged her son's murder. After all these years, what will Deborah have to say?
Shira Wright walked into the Shelby County courtroom this morning. She agreed to a plea deal in the murder case of her ex-husband, Memphis basketball star Lorenzen Wright.
Even after Shira pleads guilty to facilitating their father's murder, her children are said to be standing behind her.
I know the kids were at some time maybe still are in denial of mama's involvement, and you can understand that.
The children support Shira because they love her.
The children were very aware of the complicated dynamic between Shira and Lorenzen. And so they came into this situation with all the history of what they experienced. So they had unique perspectives on what had occurred between them.
What do you think about the fact that they're standing with and supporting their mother?
Well, that's their mom. It's probably hard to see her as she truly is.
I haven't seen them. I'm just going to love them from afar.
You can imagine a mother not just losing her son, but in the manner that it happened in all these years, suspecting it was Shira, and it turns out, yeah.
After she agreed to the deal, Lorenzen Wright's mother, Deborah Marion, spoke directly to her former daughter-in-law.
Marion, when you were first in court, you had some things that you wanted to say.
Yes.
Judge Coffey gave Deborah the opportunity to address Shira.
I will allow you to vocalize or verbalize anything that you want right now. It's very because you have that right under our Constitution now.
I couldn't wait to hear what she was gonna say.
The room was quiet, it was tense, and it was locked in as Lorenzen Wright's mother looked directly in the eye of Shira Wright.
I was thinking about it the whole while as it was going on, what I was going to say. But once I got up to that mic, my train of thought just changed. I focused on my grandkids.
But Sharon, I want to thank you for giving me my grandchildren. That's what I want to thank you for.
Instead of anger and outrage, she looks at Shira Wright and gives more of a sense of compassion and family and love.
But I want you to unlock them so I can visit them, so they can see their grandma. Because Sophia keep calling, she wants to come make chicken and dumplings. She wants to come.
And I didn't expect her to bring up the kids, but I was so glad that she did.
But I want you to call them. No, it's okay to talk to your grandma. Grandma still loves you. That's all I want my grandkids. I just hate what happened to my child. But he left some nice looking kids here for his grandma. But they want to see me like I want to see them. I'm ready for them to come back to home with their family. That's I miss them.
Well, I was trying to tell her to get the loop off my grandkids so they can call me like they used to do. But I know she got them reeled in.
Most of the children were adults. Shira Wright was not standing in the way of the children having a relationship with Deborah Marion.
To see her basically plead to Shira to let the kids be with her, it touched my heart.
Deborah, she played it well, because no matter what you say in court to that woman, it's not going to bring your son back.
Am I able to respond to her?
What a moment that is. It appears that Shira is about to say something to Deborah, and everybody is on the edge of their seat.
Mr. Gayle, you want your client to say anything at this point, sir?
Shira did want to respond. I advised her not to, because at that point, what difference does it make?
No, Miss Wright has nothing to say at this time.
Well, she had nothing to say to me. She didn't even say I'm sorry. You could see it on her face. She wasn't sorry.
I know what's happened to you and your family. Your son can never be undone by anything that these courts do. But I hope it brings you some closure. So I hope it allows your family to continue to heal. And again, thank you for your patience, and we'll deal with Mr. Turner's case in September, ma'am. Thank you all for being in court today.
With no trial for Shira, the city of Memphis still has a lot of unanswered questions. Next up is Billy Ray Turner's trial. This is the last chance to get some answers.
May be an understatement, but that's how Shelby County doctors are describing the ongoing challenges in fighting the current surge of COVID-19 numbers.
The trial of Billy Ray Turner is scheduled for this fall, but with everything going on in the world with COVID-19, it's unlikely that that will happen.
I absolutely plan to fight like hell for my client in that courtroom. I ask the public one thing, that if you have your preconceived notions, pay attention to it as the case is presented in the courtroom, then stand in judgment of it.
I hope that the truth comes out, and I hope that he does time for the role that he took in Lorenzen's murder.
I'm not really worried about what happened to Billy Ray in his upcoming trial. Lorenzen's dead because of sheriff.
At this point, it's unclear if Cher will ever say what happened, leaving everyone else to just simply speculate. And even I still have questions. What actually happened that night out by the Callus Cutoff Road? How did Lorenzen end up out there that night? Was there a second gunman? And who shot him? And the most perplexing question, why?
I would say the motive is that he was worth more dead than he was alive.
Ultimately, only she knows why she did it. Money, love, envy, it really is a tragic story.
Meanwhile, the people involved in the story are finding out that even 10 years later, there's no shortage of public interest in Lorenzen Wright's murder.
I got a documentary coming out. It's called A Million Reasons. You get to hear her talk for herself. You get to see a real inside look on our life. Well, you get to see, what did she spend all that money on, in detail. I don't have a monster to sell you. I'll tell you about Cheryl Wright, and you make your own decision. You'll be able to see it for yourself.
When you are the mother of 6 kids and you're married to their father and you would see him dead, that's just evil, that's wicked.
His kids, they suffered because not only was their father taken, but their mother was taken too. There are no winners in this case.
And I know that he's looking down on them with that huge smile that he has. And he wants the best for them, and he would love for them to be a part of his mother and father's life.
Not only was he physically murdered, but that his character was assassinated. I want people to know who Lorenzen Wright was, what type of human being he was. The lies that were told earlier about drugs, too many people bought into those lies. And so we're trying our best right now to cleanse the name of Lorenzen.
The drugs, the physical abuse, his friends say none of those things are true. And he deserves to be remembered as the good family man they knew, a man they will never forget.
With Lorenzen, I be talking to his picture. Sometimes his picture could look at me a certain way, acting like it's really him. And then I have to just stop, just talk to him. He was a mommy boy, simple as that. He would still be mama's boy if he was here now. Because he's still my firstborn.
You're as cold as ice.
The last thing they would expect is to find a suitcase with a human body in it.
There was no doubt of what it was. It's a set of human legs. Oh my gracious.
The big question is, how the hell did he get there?
They were crazy in love at first, but it quickly became tumultuous. There were infidelities, they'd fight. I think they liked the drama.
You're as cold as ice.
The person who did that would look like a monster, but sometimes killers look just like Melanie McGuire.
Do you still insist that you're innocent?
Absolutely.
Now, the all-new Jailhouse interview.
Who do you think killed your husband?
New details, stunning audio recordings.
Is there anything else you're not telling me?
Like what? Like I killed my husband.
Did you?
No. But thanks for asking.
The secret in the suitcase.
It turns out it isn't the end of this story.
The new 2020 True Crime Event Special, next Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC.
Do you think you know me?
What you want? Baby, I got it.
I've been down this road before.
All I'm asking
I want respect.
Signature became the focal point of the investigation. As detectives began to look into the personal lives of the Dorr family, they uncovered a complex and troubled dynamic. Robbie and Elizabeth had been married for only 6 months, following a very brief relationship. Prior to marrying Robbie, Elizabeth had been married 5 times, a history that suggested a persistent difficulty in establishing a stable family life. Her son, Nathan, described her as someone who desperately wanted a picture-perfect life, but struggled to find consistency. In the weeks leading up to his murder, Robbie had begun to express deep insecurities and trust issues within the marriage. Investigators recovered a handwritten note from Robbie to Elizabeth in which he expressed concern about potential infidelity, noting that she frequently deleted her text messages and kept her cellular phone hidden from him. Additionally, the marriage was under significant financial strain. Despite Robbie working multiple jobs, including a managerial position at a local restaurant, Elizabeth was not working and they had accumulated substantial debt from recent purchases, including a new vehicle, furniture, and a wedding ring. Detectives also turned their attention to Elizabeth's sister, Amanda Fillmore, who went by Mandy. Mandy lived nearby and was engaged in a romantic relationship with a man named Larry Richmond Sr. When investigators ran a criminal background check on Larry Sr., they discovered a chilling fact. He was currently on probation after serving 20 years in prison for a prior murder conviction. Despite his violent past, Mandy was deeply in love with Larry Sr., describing him as a gentle protector and introducing him to her family, including Elizabeth and Robbie, without disclosing his criminal history. Larry Sr.'s son, Larry Richmond Jr., worked at a local pawn shop called River City Pawn. Through cooperation with federal authorities, investigators learned that a Taurus Judge revolver had been reported stolen from that very pawn shop shortly before the murder. When questioning Larry Jr., detectives confronted him with a photograph recovered from his social media, which showed him with the stolen Taurus Judge in his lap. Larry Jr. eventually admitted to stealing the firearm and providing it to his father, Larry Sr. On the day of Robbie's funeral, a massive and emotional event attended by firefighters from across the region, detectives made the decision to bring in all of the key individuals for simultaneous questioning. They detained Larry Sr., Mandy, Larry Jr., and Elizabeth in separate interview rooms at the police headquarters. During her interrogation, Elizabeth maintained her initial story, claiming that she had been inside cooking dinner when she heard the gunshots. However, detectives had obtained her cellular phone records directly from the service provider. The digital data revealed a critical piece of evidence that Elizabeth had attempted to erase: a 4-minute and 18-second phone call with Larry Richmond Sr., which occurred just 5 minutes before she made the 911 call. When confronted with this discrepancy, Elizabeth became evasive. She admitted to deleting the call record, claiming it was a habitual practice to keep her phone clean. and that she hid the call because she did not want investigators to suspect she was having an affair with her sister's fiancé. However, she denied any involvement in her husband's murder. Meanwhile, Larry Richmond Jr. provided investigators with a crucial lead. He revealed that his father kept a large collection of weapons, which he had buried in a plastic tote in the backyard of Mandy's residence. Surveillance footage from a neighboring home captured Larry Sr. carrying a heavy box behind the garage with a digging tool and returning empty-handed. Officers executed a search warrant at Mandy's home and excavated the backyard, recovering several hidden firearms, although the specific Taurus judge used in the murder was not among them. The investigation also uncovered evidence of a romantic relationship between Elizabeth and Larry Sr. Larry Jr. testified that he had witnessed his father and Elizabeth sharing an intimate kiss behind Robbie's home. Furthermore, after Robbie's death, Elizabeth had visited the firehouse to inquire about his pension and life insurance policies, raising significant red flags for investigators. Despite these suspicious details, the case faced a temporary setback when the initial charges of obstruction of justice against Elizabeth were dropped. She was released from custody and quickly began relationships with other men, further alienating her children, who believed she was involved in their stepfather's death. Her son, Nathan, confronted her directly, accusing her of murdering Robbie for his financial benefits. The breakthrough in the case occurred when high-tech crime investigators successfully bypassed the security passcode on Larry Sr.'s iPhone, a process that had taken several months. The recovered location data placed Larry Sr.'s phone in the immediate vicinity of Robbie's home on the night of the murder, tracking his movements as he moved through the alleyways behind the property. The digital timeline revealed that Larry Sr. had been waiting in the dark. When Robbie arrived home, Elizabeth had spoken to Larry Sr. on the phone, informing him that Robbie was on his way, and then immediately deleted the call. Larry Sr. then powered off his phone, ambushed Robbie as he exited his truck, and shot him multiple times. In November of the year 2019, Elizabeth Fox Dorr and Larry Richmond Sr. were officially charged with murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Elizabeth was tried first. During the trial, the prosecution presented a powerful case of circumstantial evidence, focusing on the deleted phone call, the ballistics, and her financial motivations. Her own son, Nathan, testified against her, recounting how she had repeatedly asked about Robbie's pension on the very night of his death. After a tense trial, the jury deliberated for more than 4 hours before returning with a guilty verdict on all counts. Elizabeth was sentenced to 90 years in prison, ensuring she would spend the rest of her life behind bars. Larry Richmond Sr. was subsequently tried, with Mandy testifying honestly that she could not account for his whereabouts on the night of the murder. The jury found him guilty, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The tragic conspiracy had been dismantled. Robbie Dorr was honored by his fellow firefighters, who dedicated their newest fire truck in his memory, ensuring that his legacy of service would continue to protect the city he loved. The Mask of the Arsonist. In the quiet suburb of Goshen, Ohio, located on the eastern edge of the Cincinnati metropolitan area, a destructive fire broke out in the early morning hours of June in the year 2015. Emergency dispatchers received a call at 35 minutes past 1 in the morning, reporting that a home on Goshen Road was engulfed in flames. Firefighters responded urgently, arriving to find thick black smoke and intense fire pouring from every window and door of the residence. The crews immediately deployed hose lines and entered the burning structure, searching for any potential victims who might be trapped inside. Fortunately, the house was unoccupied at the time, but the interior search yielded a highly suspicious discovery. As the firefighters crawled through the thick smoke, they encountered 2 large 5-gallon plastic gasoline cans positioned in the living room and a bedroom. Recognizing the clear signs of arson, the fire chief requested the assistance of local and state fire investigators alongside the Claremont County Sheriff's Office. The owner of the home was a railroad foreman named Paul Hicks. He had purchased the property 6 months earlier as an investment, intending to renovate it. When contacted by investigators, Paul was staying at a hotel in Bluffton, Ohio, where he was working on a railway crossing project. He informed detectives that he had installed a high-definition infrared surveillance camera system at the home, which was secured inside a fireproof gun safe. Investigators recovered the digital video recorder and successfully retrieved the footage, which provided an extraordinary and clear record of the crime. The surveillance video captured 2 individuals wearing white protective Tyvek suits approaching the home at approximately 15 minutes past 1 in the morning. One of the individuals, whom investigators believed to be a female, had long, curly blonde hair hanging down her shoulders, completely exposed to the camera. The second individual, a male, poured gasoline throughout the interior of the house, which erupted into a massive, explosive fireball. Upon viewing the footage, Paul Hicks immediately and confidently identified the female arsonist as his ex-girlfriend, Kelly. He claimed that they had been engaged in a highly volatile custody battle over their young son, and that Kelly had called his phone over 100 times the night before the fire, threatening to destroy his life. He also showed investigators a separate piece of surveillance footage from a previous incident, which showed a woman with similar blonde hair vandalizing his hot tub. Based on Paul's identification and the outstanding warrant from the hot tub incident, deputies arrested Kelly during a custody exchange at a local grocery store. Handcuffed and in shock, Kelly adamantly denied any involvement in the arson, claiming she had been asleep at her mother's home, 30 minutes away, on the night of the fire. The investigation took a dramatic turn when detectives analyzed the cell phone records of both parties. While Paul's phone showed over 90 incoming calls from Kelly's number, Kelly's actual phone records from her service provider revealed that she had made only 5 calls to him that evening, none of which occurred during the hours of the fire. This massive discrepancy suggested that someone had manipulated the cellular network to frame Kelly. The breakthrough came through the efforts of Zach McCune, a specialized attorney representing the insurance company, Allstate, which had denied Paul's claim for the fire. McCune began to investigate the possibility of phone spoofing, a technology that allows an individual to disguise their caller ID to appear as another number. A subpoena to a service called Spoof Card revealed that the wave of harassing calls had actually originated from an internet protocol address registered to a woman who had recently been in a romantic relationship with Paul Hicks. The woman testified that she had purchased a cellular phone at Paul's request, which he used to make the spoof calls. Further financial investigations uncovered a series of highly unusual purchases made under this woman's name. Detectives discovered a transaction at a local shop called Kay's Wigs for a synthetic wig that perfectly matched Kelly's curly blonde hair. Even more stunning, they found a $368 purchase from an online company called That's My Face. This service allowed customers to upload photographs of an individual and receive a three-dimensional, custom-made plastic mask of their face. A subpoena to the company confirmed that the order had been placed using photographs of Kelly's face, which had been retrieved from Paul Hicks' social media accounts. The pieces of the elaborate conspiracy fell into place. Paul Hicks had hired accomplices to dress in Tyvek suits, wearing a custom mask of Kelly's face and a blonde wig, and to deliberately look directly at the surveillance cameras while setting the fire. He had then spoofed her phone number to create a false digital trail of harassment, all in an effort to secure a large insurance payout and destroy Kelly's credibility in their custody battle. While Allstate successfully countersued Paul Hicks for fraud, securing a $400,000 judgment against him, criminal investigators from the Huron County Sheriff's Office were looking into Paul for a far darker matter. They revealed that in the year 2001, Paul's first wife, Regina Rowe Hicks, had been the victim of an unsolved homicide in the rural town of Willard, Ohio. Regina was a vibrant, independent young woman who loved working on four-wheelers and listening to country music. In the summer of the year 2001, a mysterious fire had destroyed the home she shared with Paul. After receiving a $60,000 insurance settlement, Regina had filed for divorce, purchased a signature white Camaro, and begun a new relationship, finding her long-lost independence. On a crisp October evening in the year 2001, Regina was scheduled to pick up her 4-year-old son, Montana, from Paul Hicks at the home of his best friend, Steve Gates. She never arrived, and her family launched a frantic search. 4 days later, a local farmer discovered a white Camaro submerged in a deep farm pond. Inside the vehicle, authorities recovered Regina's body from the passenger side floorboard. An autopsy revealed that she had suffered 3 blunt force blows to her scalp, which had incapacitated her, and that she had died from drowning, indicating she was alive when the car entered the water. The physical evidence from the car suggested that a much larger person had been driving, as the driver's seat was pushed all the way back and a distinct mud swipe from Regina's boot was found on the passenger door, proving she had been placed there. Despite strong suspicions pointing toward Paul, the investigation went cold due to a lack of direct forensic evidence. Over 20 years later, a local podcaster named Ashley Ford began to look into Regina's cold case, bringing renewed public attention to the mystery. The increased scrutiny prompted state investigators from the Bureau of Criminal Investigation to re-interview witnesses, focusing on Paul's best friend, Steve Gates. Confronted by investigators and facing pressure, Steve Gates agreed to cooperate. In exchange for immunity from prosecution, he revealed the truth of what had happened on that night in October of the year 2001. Steve testified that Regina had arrived at his property to pick up her son and had entered into a violent argument with Paul Hicks over child support and custody. Steve had retreated to his garage to avoid the conflict. When he emerged, he saw Regina unresponsive in the passenger seat of her Camaro. Paul told him she was dead and that Steve was now involved. Out of fear for his own safety, Steve followed Paul as he drove the Camaro into the farm pond, leaving Regina to drown. He had kept this dark secret for 24 years. In April of the year 2025, Paul Hicks was arrested and indicted for the murder and kidnapping of Regina Rowe Hicks. He pleaded not guilty, and the case proceeded to trial. The prosecution presented a powerful narrative of Paul's history of domestic abuse, control, and his pattern of utilizing arson for financial and personal gain. After a short deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of guilty on all counts. Paul Hicks was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years, bringing a definitive end to his decades of deception. Kelly was cleared of all charges, reunited with her son, Daniel, and the Rowe family. Finally found the justice and peace they had sought for a quarter of a century. The signal in the Pass of the Oaks. The central coast of California is home to the scenic community of Paso Robles, a region renowned for its rolling hills, ancient oak trees, and world-class vineyards. In this peaceful and affluent landscape, 62-year-old Nancy Woodrum was a beloved figure. She was a skilled hairstylist who operated a popular salon called The Strand, and she was a devout Jehovah's Witness who dedicated much of her time to her faith and her community. Nancy lived alone at Paradise Ranch, a secluded and beautiful property on El Faro Road that she and her late husband had spent years remodeling. In May of the year 2018, Nancy decided to sell the ranch to focus entirely on her ministry, and she had hired several contractors to perform final repairs on the home. On Friday, the 4th of May, a large group of wedding guests checked into the main house at Paradise Ranch, preparing for a weekend celebration at a local winery. The bride, who was staying in the adjacent guest cottage, met Nancy, who welcomed her with a warm embrace. The next afternoon, Nancy's daughter, Amanda, grew concerned when her mother failed to appear for a scheduled Bible study. Amanda's neighbor went to check on Nancy and found the front door of her cottage wide open, with the television blaring, but Nancy was nowhere to be found. When Amanda arrived, she discovered her mother's purse, keys, cellular phone, and vehicles were all present at the home. However, she noticed a large stain on the carpet, and her mother's bedding was entirely missing. Looking closer, she saw blood spatter on the walls and the headboard, prompting her to make a frantic call to 911. Senior Deputy Clinton Cole, a veteran investigator with the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office, arrived at the scene and immediately recognized that a violent crime had taken place. The evidence suggested that Nancy had been assaulted inside her bedroom and taken from the property against her will. The investigation received a significant lead when an officer from the California Highway Patrol discovered several discarded items on the side of La Ponza Road, approximately 7 miles from the ranch. The items included blood, stained bedding that matched the pattern of Nancy's sheets, a woman's dress, and clothing that Amanda confirmed belonged to her mother. With over 20 wedding guests staying on the property, detectives faced a daunting task. They secured the entire ranch as an active crime scene, interviewing every guest and collecting deoxyribonucleic acid samples. While one guest initially appeared suspicious because of his movements during the rehearsal dinner, he was quickly cleared after his wife provided photographic proof of his presence at the event. Investigators then turned their attention to the contractors who had worked on the ranch. They focused on a general contractor named Sean Bloom, who had recently engaged in a heated financial dispute with Nancy after being fired from
the job.
However, Bloom cooperated fully, providing a voluntary deoxyribonucleic acid sample that did not match the unknown male profile recovered from a bloody handprint on a pillow in Nancy's bedroom. With the investigation stalling and the local community growing increasingly anxious, the sheriff's office decided to utilize a cutting-edge investigative tool, Google geofencing. This technology allowed investigators to establish a virtual boundary around Paradise Ranch and request anonymized data from Google regarding any cellular devices that were active within that boundary during the hours of Nancy's disappearance. The search warrant yielded a crucial result. At 33 minutes past 1 a.m. the morning, on the night Nancy vanished, a single device was active inside her cottage. This was the exact time that an interrupted 911 call had been attempted from Nancy's phone. A subsequent warrant for the subscriber information revealed that the device belonged to a painter named Carlo Fuentes Flores, who had recently worked on Nancy's decks. Carlo had no prior criminal record, and his employer described him as a polite, mild-mannered father and husband who was exceptionally skilled at his trade. However, a deep forensic analysis of Carlo's Google search history revealed a hidden, dark persona. In the weeks leading up to the crime, he had searched extensively for explicit videos featuring older women and had made inquiries regarding escorts in various cities. He had also recorded numerous intimate encounters with different women on his phone. Detectives placed Carlo under surveillance and successfully recovered a discarded soda bottle from a local restaurant. The state crime lab extracted his deoxyribonucleic acid from the bottle and confirmed a perfect match to the bloody handprint on the pillow. Investigators brought Carlo in for interrogation, initially presenting him with photographs of the property and asking benign questions about his painting work. When they confronted him with the scientific certainty of the deoxyribonucleic acid match, Carlo's confident demeanor collapsed. He broke down, admitting that he had killed Nancy, but claiming it was a tragic accident where he had accidentally run her over with his truck while retrieving a ladder in the dark. Detectives pushed past this initial lie, pointing out that an accidental collision would not explain the blood spatter and the handprint inside the bedroom. Carlo finally confessed to the full horror of his actions. He admitted that he had entered her home with the intent to assault her, had beaten her to incapacitate her, and had subsequently raped her. Afterward, to ensure she could not identify him to the police, he had suffocated her with a pillow. In a stunning moment, Carlo offered to lead investigators to where he had hidden Nancy's remains. He guided Senior Deputy Cole and a team of detectives to a remote, desolate area of the Carrizo Plain, nearly an hour's drive from Paso Robles. There, hidden beneath a small, unnatural pile of rocks, investigators recovered Nancy's skeletal remains, which had been scattered by local wildlife. The discovery brought a profound sense of grief and closure to her family, who had spent months praying for her return. Faced with the overwhelming evidence of his confession, his internet history, and the recorded jail calls in which he admitted his crimes to his wife, Carlo Fuentes Flores chose to enter a slow plea. This legal procedure allowed the prosecution to present their evidence to a judge, who subsequently found him guilty of first-degree murder with the special circumstance of rape during a burglary. In January of the year 2022, Carlo Fuentes Flores was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring he would never again walk free. At her memorial, held at a beautiful vineyard, hundreds of community members gathered to celebrate Nancy's life, remembering her as a strong, loving woman of deep faith. Her daughter, Amanda, continues to ride Nancy's beloved horse, Montana, passing on her mother's passion for nature and life to her own daughter, ensuring that Nancy's bright light is never truly extinguished. The triumph of truth. These 4 cases, spanning different states and decades, reveal a profound truth about human nature and the pursuit of justice. Whether it is a mother crafting a children's book to mask a calculated poisoning, a wife conspiring with a convicted felon to execute her firefighter husband, an arsonist utilizing custom masks to frame his ex-girlfriend for his own crimes, or a mild-mannered painter hiding a dark, violent obsession behind a polite facade, the truth possesses an inevitable, stubborn persistence. The modern criminal justice system, equipped with advanced technologies like geofencing, precise chemical and toxicological testing, and high-tech digital forensic extraction, is capable of dismantling even the most complex webs of deception. Yet, these scientific achievements are only effective when guided by the empathy, patience, and tireless dedication of the investigators, family members, and communities who refuse to allow the victims' voices to be silenced. In the end, these stories demonstrate that the narratives of lies and self-interest constructed by perpetrators are fragile and temporary. The lasting, permanent stories are those of the victims themselves, whose memories are honored, whose families are supported, and whose lives are remembered not for the tragedies that took them, but for the love, light, and goodness they brought into the world. The architecture of human deception is a labyrinth where the criminal mind seeks shelter behind carefully constructed facades. To understand these dark corridors, a criminal psychology analyst must look past the superficial presentations of normalcy, grief, or victimization, and examine the subtle, often microscopic fissures left by guilt. Throughout history, the resolution of seemingly impenetrable mysteries has depended not only on technological advances, but also on the methodical, patient application of behavioral analysis and structural empathy. By examining the actions of those who believe they have executed the perfect crime, investigators reveal a universal truth. No matter how meticulously a plan is devised, the human element, fractured by narcissism, greed, or the desire for control, ultimately betrays the perpetrator. The following narratives represent a profound testament to the investigative forces that labor in the shadows to restore balance, honor the memory of the lost, and ensure that truth prevails over deception. Let us begin our psychological inquiry with a journey into the picturesque vineyards and rolling hills of Paso Robles, California. Nestled halfway between San Francisco and Los Angeles, this getaway town is renowned for its scenic beauty, its oak trees, and its quiet, fairy tale atmosphere. Known historically as El Paso de Robles, or the Pass of the Oaks, it is a community where neighbors trust one another, and the layout of the land offers a sense of pastoral peace. Yet down El Faro Road, in the middle of this natural beauty and tragedy took place that would challenge the collective security of this close-knit community. The central figure of this community was Nancy Woodrum, a 62-year-old woman who ran a popular salon downtown called The Strand. Nancy was a fixture in the area, a warm, generous, and devout individual who lived alone on a secluded vacation property named Paradise Ranch. Following the passing of her husband, A few years prior, she poured her energy into her family, her horseback riding, and her faith as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Those who knew her, including her daughter Amanda, spoke of a unique bond defined by openness, kindness, and a shared passion for the outdoors. Nancy had decided to sell Paradise Ranch to devote her time fully to preaching and teaching her faith, and she was in the process of having final renovations completed on the property. On Friday, May 4th, 2018, a large group of wedding guests checked into the spacious Victorian-style main house at Paradise Ranch. The property was an ideal venue for a weekend wedding at a local winery with its wraparound porches and large willow trees. The bride-to-be, staying in the adjacent guest house, met Nancy that afternoon, noting her warm hospitality. However, the serene weekend was abruptly shattered the following day. On Saturday, May 5th, 2018, Amanda received a concerning telephone call informing her that her mother had failed to appear for a scheduled Bible study. This was highly uncharacteristic of Nancy, whose devotion to her routine and community was absolute. Amanda immediately requested that a neighbor visit the cottage to check on her mother. The neighbor arrived to find the front door wide open, the television blaring, and no sign of Nancy. When Amanda and her family approached the cottage, they confronted a deeply unsettling scene. Nancy's purse, car keys, cellular phone, and tablet were still inside, and her 2 vehicles remained parked outside. Yet, a closer examination revealed a large stain on the carpet, and Nancy's sheets and bedding were entirely missing, spotting what appeared to be blood spatter on the walls. Amanda contacted emergency services. The subsequent call to the 911 dispatch recorded a frantic family attempting to make sense of a sudden quiet disappearance amidst a bustling wedding party of over 20 guests. Senior Deputy Degnan and Reserve Detective Clinton Cole of the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office arrived at what was quickly designated a critical crime scene. The absence of forced entry suggested either that Nancy knew her assailant or that she had been caught entirely off guard. Inside the cottage, investigators found bloodstains on the floor, on a beige pillow, on a cabinet, and on the headboard of her bed. The physical evidence spoke clearly to a sudden, violent struggle, suggesting that Nancy had been taken against her will. The complexity of the case escalated rapidly. The presence of more than 20 wedding guests on the property presented a vast pool of potential suspects who had ready access to the estate. Investigators began the monumental task of securing the property and preparing to interview every individual present. Amidst this initial chaos, an eagle-eyed officer with the California Highway Patrol made a discovery approximately 6 to 7 miles away on La Ponza Road. Discarded in the brush were items of bedding, a pillow, a woman's dress, a pair of shorts, and a shirt. The gingham-type print of the bedding matched the remains of the linens at Paradise Ranch, and Amanda confirmed that the clothing belonged to her mother. The presence of bloodstains on these items led investigators to a grim hypothesis. Nancy had been severely injured or killed, wrapped in her own bedding, and transported to a remote location. In the initial phase of any homicide or abduction investigation, the behavioral analyst must categorize potential suspects based on opportunity, relationship, And motive. The wedding guests, though initially scrutinized, did not fit the psychological profile of a targeted abduction. Nevertheless, detectives pursued every lead. One guest, whose whereabouts on the night of the disappearance were initially unclear, became a focus of intense interest. Despite initial reluctance to cooperate, which raised immediate warning flags, subsequent interviews and a review of photographs from a rehearsal dinner at a local winery established his alibi. To ensure absolute clarity, this guest voluntarily provided a sample of his deoxyribonucleic acid, which ultimately excluded him from the investigation. The search for motive then turned to individuals with recent professional contact with Nancy. Investigators learned that a general contractor named Sean Bloom had recently been dismissed by Nancy following a heated dispute over the quality of his work and outstanding payments. Text messages between the two revealed a contentious relationship, with the contractor threatening legal action. When approached, the contractor openly acknowledged his frustration with Nancy, but ultimately cooperated with the authorities, submitting a deoxyribonucleic acid sample that cleared him of any involvement. The investigation then turned to a potential suspect closer to home. Behavioral science dictates that family conflicts must be evaluated, and investigators discovered that Nancy had an estranged relationship with her son, Chad. Chad had expressed resentment toward his family's religious beliefs and had not spoken to his mother face-to-face in several years. However, text messages revealed that Nancy had reached out to him on the eve of her disappearance, seeking to find common ground. When approached by detectives, Chad displayed deep skepticism toward law enforcement and refused to provide a deoxyribonucleic acid sample. Voluntarily, investigators placed him under surveillance, retrieving discarded beer bottles after he was stopped for driving with an open container. The subsequent laboratory analysis of the deoxyribonucleic acid on those bottles cleared him of any connection to the crime. At this juncture, the investigation threatened to stall. Traditional leads had been exhausted, and the public expressed growing concern over the lack of progress. It was at this critical moment that the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office decided to employ an innovative investigative tool, geofencing. This technique, which had rarely been utilized in California at the time, allowed investigators to draw a virtual perimeter around Paradise Ranch and request that Google identify any active cellular devices that had entered that specific zone during a precise time frame. The time frame was established by a vital clue, a 911 call placed from Nancy's phone at 12:17 in the morning on the night she disappeared. The call had lasted for 0 seconds, indicating it had been terminated almost instantly. This brief, interrupted signal provided a definitive time and date stamp for the assault. When Google returned the geofence data, investigators systematically cleared the devices belonging to the wedding guests. However, as they focused on Nancy's cottage, they identified an unfamiliar device that had pinged within the walls of her studio at 1:33 and 1:52 in the morning. This device was not registered to Nancy, nor did it belong to any guest or family member.
Bye.
Serving a subsequent warrant for the subscriber information associated with that specific device, investigators obtained a name: Carlo Fuentes Flores. Carlo Fuentes Flores was a local painter who had been hired to work on the decks of the main house at Paradise Ranch. He had been interviewed briefly in the early days of the investigation, during which he appeared extremely cooperative, polite, and mild-mannered. He had even recounted a pleasant exchange with Nancy, noting that she had praised his work ethic and given him a tamale. The contrast between this cooperative, hard-working exterior and the digital evidence placing his phone at the crime scene in the early morning hours presents a classic psychological dichotomy. To understand this anomaly, investigators conducted a deep inquiry into his digital footprint. A forensic examination of his search history revealed a hidden, compulsive aspect of his behavior. He had conducted numerous searches for adult videos featuring older women, a pattern that aligned with Nancy's age. Furthermore, his phone contained multiple self-shot videos of encounters with different women, alongside evidence of excessive drinking and solicitation. This evidence suggested a dual identity: a respectful, courteous craftsman by day, and a volatile, impulsive individual by night. To secure an arrest, investigators required physical evidence linking him directly to the assault. A special operations unit placed him under surveillance, following him to a local restaurant where he had lunch with his wife. When he departed, detectives retrieved the plastic soda bottle he had used. The laboratory compared the deoxyribonucleic acid from the bottle to the partial bloody handprint discovered on the pillow at Nancy's cottage.
It was a match.
In November 2018, Carlo Fuentes Flores was brought into the interrogation room. The subsequent exchange, preserved on video, illustrates the classic stages of criminal denial and eventual confession when confronted with absolute physical evidence. Initially, the suspect maintained his polite, cooperative demeanor, confirming his work on the property, but denying any knowledge of where Nancy slept. When detectives revealed they possessed deoxyribonucleic acid evidence linking him to the crime, his composure shattered. The suspect initially attempted to minimize his culpability by presenting the death as a tragic accident. He claimed he had returned to the property in the middle of the night to retrieve a ladder for his next job and had accidentally struck Nancy with his vehicle as he was backing up. He claimed he had carried her inside to help her, where she subsequently collapsed. However, as investigators pressed him on the logistics of this story, the narrative collapsed under its own logical inconsistencies. He eventually admitted to entering her cottage with the intent to assault her, raping her, and subsequently suffocating her with a pillow to prevent her from identifying him. The final act of this investigation required the recovery of Nancy's remains to provide closure to her family. The suspect agreed to guide detectives to the location where he had left her body. The journey led them deep into the arid vast landscape of the Carrizo Plain, an hour east of Paso Robles. The search-in. The fading light was difficult, as the suspect struggled to identify the precise spot in the uniform terrain. Just as doubt began to creep into the minds of the search team, Detective Cole spotted a small, unnatural mound of rocks stacked in a circle. Beneath them lay Nancy's remains. In January 2022, rather than proceed to a lengthy trial that would expose both families to intense public scrutiny, the suspect entered a slow plea. The prosecution presented its extensive documentary evidence to the judge, who subsequently found the defendant guilty of first-degree murder with the special circumstance of rape. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a conviction that was upheld on appeal in July 2023. For Nancy's daughter Amanda and the community of Paso Robles, the resolution of this case brought a somber peace, ensuring that the memory of a generous, faith-filled woman would be honored and her assailant held permanently accountable. As we transition from the pastoral hills of California to the high mountain valleys of Summit County, Utah, we encounter another study in criminal psychology, one defined not by sudden physical intrusion, but by domestic betrayal, financial desperation, and a highly performative display of grief. In the beautiful mountain community of Heber City and the affluent environs of Park City, Corey Richens was perceived as a successful, ambitious woman, having grown up in a family that moved frequently due to her parents' construction work. Corey had developed a strong drive to achieve financial success.
As a
young woman working as a cashier at a local home improvement store, she met Eric Richens, a successful, hard-working stonemason who owned a thriving masonry business. Despite a significant age difference and initial reservations from Eric's family, the couple married and subsequently had 3 young sons. To the outside world, the Richens family represented the pinnacle of the American dream. Eric was a dedicated father, a youth soccer coach, and an avid outdoorsman who had built a $1 million business. Corey, ambitious to build her own legacy, established a real estate and home flipping business. By 2021, she was managing multiple renovation projects, including her most ambitious endeavor, the purchase of a partially completed multi-million-dollar mansion in Midway, Utah, which she hoped to transform into a luxury event venue. However, behind this opulent facade lay a reality of crippling debt and domestic
discord.
In 2020, Eric discovered that Corey had secretly secured a $250,000 line of credit against his family home, a property he owned outright. This discovery shattered the trust in their marriage and prompted Eric to consult a divorce attorney and privately restructure his estate. He established a new trust, designating his sister as the executor and his 3 sons as the sole beneficiaries, effectively cutting Corey out of his primary assets. Although the couple remained together and attended counseling, the underlying financial tension continued to escalate. On the morning of March 4th, 2022, at approximately 3 o'clock, Corey contacted 911, reporting that her husband was cold to the touch and not breathing. Emergency responders arrived to find Eric on the floor of the master bedroom, where cardiopulmonary resuscitation proved unsuccessful. Corey informed the responding deputies that they had been celebrating her business success the night before with a cocktail. She claimed she had subsequently spent the night in her son's bedroom to comfort him during a night terror, and upon returning to the master bedroom, discovered Eric unresponsive. The initial assumption by some on the scene, including a suggestion of an aneurysm, was quickly dispelled by the forensic autopsy. The medical examiner determined that Eric's death was caused by acute fentanyl intoxication, with the toxicology report indicating a concentration of the drug that was 5 times the lethal limit. Crucially, the substance was identified as illicitly manufactured non-pharmaceutical fentanyl, immediately transforming a sudden medical tragedy into a homicide investigation. In the year following Eric's death, Corey's behavior presented a fascinating subject for behavioral analysis. Rather than displaying the quiet withdrawal typical of profound grief, she engaged in a highly public, performative campaign, asserting that she could find no adequate resources to help her young sons cope with the loss of their father. She authored a children's book titled, Are You With Me? The book, which featured a touching dedication to Eric and illustrations of their family, was designed to comfort grieving children by suggesting that a deceased parent's presence remains with them. In March 2023, Corey appeared on local television programs, presenting herself as a resilient, compassionate widow navigating the depths of tragedy. This public display, however, stood in stark contrast to the growing suspicions of Eric's family and the methodical progress of law enforcement. Shortly after her television appearances, an anonymous email to the station containing the stark accusation she killed her husband signaled that the public narrative was about to fracture. The criminal investigation, led by Detective Jeff O'Driscoll of the Summit County Sheriff's Office, systematically dismantled Corey's defense. A private investigator hired by the Richens family had retrieved phone records showing extensive, frequent communication between Corey and an individual named Carmen Lauber, a woman with a history of drug-related offenses who had worked for Corey's cleaning business. When detectives executed a search warrant at Carmen's residence, they discovered drug paraphernalia and, significantly, a copy of Eric's obituary taped to a mirror. Facing substantial drug and weapon charges, Carmen agreed to cooperate with the authorities. She revealed that Corey had requested she procure strong prescription pain medication on 2 separate occasions in early 2022. According to Carmen, Corey had explicitly requested some of that Michael Jackson stuff, and after the first delivery, requested a stronger dose. This testimony was corroborated by text message records and the statement of a local distributor, Robert Crozier, who confirmed selling illicit pills to Carmen. The psychological profile of Corey Richins was further illuminated by her digital history. Investigators discovered that after her home was searched, she conducted numerous internet searches on her phone, including inquiries regarding luxury prisons for the rich in America. Can police uncover deleted messages on iPhone? And what is a lethal dose of fentanyl? While the defense argued these searches were a natural, panicked response to being accused of a crime, when viewed in conjunction with her massive financial liabilities, which exceeded $4 million across multiple high-interest lenders, the searches pointed to a calculating mind assessing her legal exposure. The financial motive was accompanied by evidence of personal betrayal. Investigators discovered that Corey had been engaged in a long-term, secret affair with a handyman, Josh Grossman. Text messages between the two revealed a passionate relationship, with Corey expressing a desire to escape her marriage and establish a life with him at the Midway Mansion. In a text sent less than 48 hours before Eric's death, she urged Grossman to hang in until Friday, promising that life is going to be different. The physical evidence of prior poisoning attempts further solidified the state's case. Eric's family recounted a trip to Greece in 2019, during which Eric became violently ill after consuming a drink prepared by Corey, leading him to contact his sister and express fear that his wife was attempting to poison him. Furthermore, on Valentine's Day 2022, Corey had purchased a bagel sandwich for Eric. After taking a single bite, Eric suffered a severe reaction, requiring the use of his son's epinephrine auto-injector and a heavy dose of antihistamines. He subsequently texted a friend, stating, "I think she might have poisoned me." In May 2023, Corey was arrested and charged with aggravated murder and drug distribution charges. While held in the Summit County Jail, her propensity for written deception emerged once again. During a routine sweep of her cell, deputies discovered a 4-page handwritten letter addressed to her mother. The letter, which featured the instruction, "Walk the dog," at the top of the first page, outlined an elaborate narrative her mother was instructed to relay to Corey's brother. The brother was to testify falsely that Eric had confessed to obtaining illicit fentanyl from Mexico through ranch workers. Corey's defense argued this document was merely a draft of a fictional manuscript, but prosecutors successfully argued it was a direct attempt at witness tampering. The trial, which took place in a small courthouse in the mountains of Utah, was a dramatic confrontation between performative innocence and circumstantial evidence. The state presented a meticulous case over 13 days, calling Eric's family, the drug suppliers, and Corey's former friends to the stand. Allie Staking, Corey's lifelong friend, testified to the conversation surrounding the Valentine's Day incident, noting that while they had laughed about it at the time, the subsequent revelation of Eric's cause of death cast the memory in a terrifying light. The most anticipated witness was Corey's former lover, Josh Grossman. His Emotional testimony revealed a man deeply affected by the manipulation he had experienced. He recounted a chilling conversation that took place in Corey's vehicle in the weeks following Eric's death, during which Corey asked him if he had ever killed anyone during his military service in Iraq and how it had made him feel. In a stunning tactical decision, the defense team rested its case without calling a single witness or presenting any evidence. They argued that the prosecution had failed to establish the physical mechanism by which the fentanyl was administered to Eric, suggesting that his death was the result of a self-administered, accidental overdose. The jury, consisting of 8 members, deliberated for just under 3 hours. The brevity of their discussion reflected the overwhelming weight of the circumstantial and behavioral evidence presented by the state. Corey Richins was found guilty on all counts, including aggravated murder. She was subsequently sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a sentence delivered on what would have been Eric's 44th birthday. For the 3 young boys who lost their father to violence and their mother to prison, the resolution of this trial marked the end of a public nightmare and the beginning of a quiet recovery under the care of their extended family. We turn our attention now to the industrial heartland of Evansville, Indiana, where a similar web of domestic conspiracy, financial opportunism, and secret affairs resulted in the death of a dedicated public servant. Robert "Robbie" Dorr was a beloved 28-year veteran of the Evansville Fire Department, known for his bravery, his leadership, and his dedication to training younger firefighters. Robbie was a cornerstone of his community. To support his family, he frequently worked extra shifts and held a second job as a manager at a local restaurant, Taco John's. It was there that he met Elizabeth Becky Fox, a woman who had experienced a turbulent life, having been adopted into a foster home after childhood adversity and married 5 times previously. Robbie fell deeply in love with Becky, seeking to provide her with a stable, prosperous life. The couple married in a beautiful ceremony in Panama City Beach, Florida, and settled into a home on Oakley Street. Becky embraced the role of a stay-at-home wife, and Robbie worked tirelessly to provide for her and her children. However, the financial reality of their lifestyles soon began to strain the marriage. Becky engaged in significant spending, purchasing a new vehicle and high-end home furnishings shortly after their wedding, leaving Robbie deeply in debt and maxing out his credit cards. On the evening of February 26, 2019, Robbie returned home after an exhausting 12-hour shift at the fire department. As he pulled into his driveway on Oakley Street, he was ambushed and shot multiple times at close range. Neighboring residents reported hearing 5 rapid gunshots. Becky contacted 911, screaming that her husband had been shot and was bleeding in the driveway. The responding emergency personnel, including many of Robbie's fellow firefighters, arrived to find him unresponsive with severe gunshot wounds. Despite desperate resuscitation efforts, Robbie was pronounced deceased at the scene. The loss of a prominent firefighter sent shockwaves through the Evansville community, and his funeral was marked by a massive procession of emergency vehicles and hundreds of mourning citizens. The initial investigation at the crime scene revealed a highly unusual detail. No shell casings were recovered, but a single fired projectile was found in the street. The forensic autopsy revealed that Robbie had been struck by a combination of jacketed ammunition, ball projectiles, and plastic shotgun wadding. A firearms expert identified this unique ballistic signature as characteristic of a Taurus judge, a specialized revolver capable of firing both conventional handgun rounds and shotgun shells from the same cylinder. As detectives constructed their investigation board, they began to uncover a complex web of relationships. Becky's sister, Amanda "Mandy" Fillmore, was living with a man named Larry Richmond Sr. Richmond was a convicted felon who had served 20 years in prison for a prior homicide committed when he was 17 years old. Despite his criminal background, Mandy was deeply in love with him, and he had been introduced to the extended family, including Becky and Robbie. Through cell phone forensic analysis, investigators discovered that in the months leading up to the murder, Robbie had become increasingly insecure about Becky's fidelity, noting her habit of deleting text messages and shielding her phone. The critical breakthrough in the case came from the recovery of deleted phone records. Sprint network data revealed that Becky had received a 4-minute and 18-second phone call from Larry Richmond Sr. just minutes before she contacted 911 to report the shooting. Becky had systematically deleted this call from her device history. When brought in for interrogation, Becky initially denied any knowledge of the call or any relationship with Richmond. However, when confronted with the carrier records, she admitted to deleting the call, claiming she did so because she feared it would make her look suspicious. She insisted that her conversation with Richmond had nothing to do with the shooting and denied having an affair. The investigative focus intensified on Larry Richmond Sr. His son Larry Richmond Jr. worked at a local pawn shop from which a Taurus Judge revolver had recently been reported stolen. Larry Jr. eventually confessed to stealing the firearm and giving it to his father. He also revealed a critical piece of information. His father had buried a container of firearms in the backyard of the residence he shared with Mandy. Surveillance footage from a neighboring property confirmed this lead, showing Larry Richmond Sr. carrying a container and a shovel into the backyard under the cover of darkness. Detectives excavated the yard and recovered several firearms, though the specific murder weapon was not among them. The psychological dimension of the conspiracy became clear through the testimony of an inmate, Muhammad, who had shared a cell with Larry Richmond Sr. Muhammad reported that Richmond had confessed to the murder, stating that he and Becky had been engaged in a secret affair. According to the informant, Richmond believed that by eliminating Robbie, Becky would secure his firefighter pension, allowing the couple to establish a prosperous life together. Becky's financial focus was confirmed by her own family. Her son Nathan testified that on the very night of the murder and repeatedly in the days following, his mother had inquired about the logistics of securing Robbie's pension and life insurance policies. He recounted his frustration with her apparent lack of grief and her immediate focus on financial gain. In 2022, Becky was brought to trial for murder and conspiracy to commit murder. The prosecution presented a powerful circumstantial case, highlighting the deleted phone call, her financial motivation, and her secret relationship with Richmond, which was confirmed by Larry Jr.'s testimony regarding witnessing a romantic encounter between them. Despite her protestations of innocence, the jury returned a guilty verdict after 4 hours of deliberation. Becky was sentenced to 90 years in prison. Larry Richmond Sr. was subsequently tried in December of that year, armed with the location data from his cellular phone, which placed him in the immediate vicinity of Oakley Street at the time of the shooting, and the testimony of his son and fellow inmates. The state secured a conviction for murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For Robbie's children, Lindsay and Nathan, and his fellow firefighters, the double convictions brought a hard-won justice, ensuring that those who had betrayed a dedicated public servant would spend the remainder of their lives behind bars. Finally, we turn our analytical gaze to a case that spanned nearly a quarter of a century, originating in the rural railroad town of Willard, Ohio, and culminating in an elaborate theatrical deception in the suburbs of Cincinnati. In October 2001, Regina Rowe Hicks was a young mother seeking independence. Having recently separated from her husband, Paul Hicks, she had secured a financial settlement following a fire that destroyed their marital home. With her new resources, she purchased a distinctive white Chevrolet Camaro and was preparing to finalize a divorce. She had recently begun dating a new boyfriend, Mikey Perkins, and was looking forward to a fresh start. On the evening of October 18, 2001, Regina was scheduled to pick up her 4-year-old son, Montana, from Paul, who was staying at the home of his close friend, Steve Gates. Regina never arrived to pick up her son, and she failed to appear at her mother's home. Her sudden disappearance immediately raised alarms among her family, who knew she would never willingly abandon her young son. 4 days later, a local property owner in Huron County noticed an unusual object submerged in a deep pond on his land. Upon closer inspection, authorities recovered a white Chevrolet Camaro submerged within the passenger footwell of the vehicle was the body of Regina Hicks. The initial assessment by some suggested a tragic driving accident, but the forensic pathologist and crime scene investigators quickly identified several anomalous details. Regina's body was positioned entirely on the passenger side, with her feet wedged beneath the console. The driver's seat was pushed back to a position that would accommodate a much taller individual, and the vehicle was stuck in second gear with the driver's side window down. Furthermore, the forensic autopsy revealed 3 blunt force injuries to the top of Regina's scalp. These injuries were not fatal on their own but were sufficient to render her unconscious. Crucially, the presence of pond water and sediment in her nasal cavity indicated that she was still breathing when the vehicle entered the water, establishing drowning as the cause of death. The toxicology report was entirely negative for alcohol or drugs. Despite strong suspicions pointing toward Paul Hicks, who faced significant child support obligations if the divorce proceeded, investigators lacked the physical or testimonial evidence required to secure an indictment. Paul maintained a firm alibi, claiming he and his friend Steve Gates had waited for Regina all evening and that she had simply failed to appear. The case grew cold, leaving Regina's mother, Losella, to wage a tireless, decades-long campaign for justice before her passing from cancer. 14 years later, in June 2015, in the Cincinnati suburb of Goshen, Ohio, an arson occurred at a home owned by Paul Hicks. The home, purchased as an investment property, was destroyed in a massive blaze in the middle of the night. Paul, who was working out of town at the time, cooperated with investigators and retrieved a high-definition surveillance system that had survived the fire inside a fireproof safe. The surveillance footage captured a deeply disturbing scene. Two individuals, clad in protective Tyvek suits, entered the home and poured gasoline throughout the structure before igniting it. Crucially, one of the individuals, a female with long, curly blonde hair, stopped and looked directly into the camera, exposing her face. Paul Hicks immediately identified the woman as his ex-girlfriend, Kelly, with whom he was engaged in a bitter custody dispute over their young son. He pointed to a prior incident where her vehicle had been seen near his property and claimed she had called his phone over 90 times on the night of the fire. Based on this evidence, local police arrested Kelly and charged her with criminal damaging and suspected arson. However, the state's case began to unravel during the civil litigation initiated by Paul against his insurance provider, Allstate. Zachary McCune, an attorney representing the insurance company, conducted a meticulous investigation into the digital and physical evidence. A forensic review of Kelly's actual cellular records revealed that she had not made the 90-plus calls showing on Paul's phone log. Investigators discovered that the calls had been generated using a digital spoofing service designed to alter caller identification. This service was traced to an Internet Protocol address associated with another woman who had previously dated Paul. This woman revealed that Paul had utilized her financial accounts to purchase several unusual items online. These items included a long, curly blonde wig and, most significantly, a custom-made rubber mask ordered from a specialty website called That's My Face. The mask had been created using photographs of Kelly's face retrieved from her social media profiles. The implications of this discovery were profound. Paul Hicks had orchestrated the destruction of his own home and hired accomplices to wear a custom mask of his ex-girlfriend's face to frame her for arson and secure custody of their son. As the details of this elaborate deception became public, the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation reopened the cold case murder of Regina Hicks. They recognized a clear behavioral pattern of extreme control, manipulation, and the staging of crimes to evade responsibility. The renewed investigation received significant public attention through the work of a local podcaster, Ashley Ford, who highlighted the unresolved discrepancies in the 2001 murder, the public pressure, and the meticulous work of BCI detectives ultimately focused on Paul's lifelong friend, Steve Gates. Faced with the prospect of prosecution for his role in the cover-up and the overwhelming evidence of Paul's manipulative history, Steve Gates agreed to cooperate with the authorities in exchange for transactional immunity. For the first time in 24 years, the truth of what occurred on the night of October 18, 2001, was revealed. Gates testified that Regina had indeed arrived at his property to pick up Montana. An argument ensued between Regina and Paul regarding child custody and support. During the confrontation, Paul assaulted Regina, rendering her unconscious. Realizing what he had done, Paul placed her in the passenger seat of her Camaro and forced Gates to follow him to the remote pond in Paul's vehicle. Paul drove the Camaro into the deep water, allowing it to submerge with the unconscious Regina inside. He subsequently escaped through the open window, joined Gates in the escape vehicle, and returned home. On the journey back, Paul used his mobile phone to call Regina's cellular phone, a calculated attempt to create a digital alibi showing he was still trying to contact her after her departure. In April 2025, Paul Hicks was indicted and subsequently arrested for the murder and kidnapping of Regina Hicks. During his trial, the prosecution presented a powerful narrative of control and deception, connecting the staging of the 2001 vehicle drowning with the elaborate custom mask arson of 2015. Although the defense highlighted the lack of physical deoxyribonucleic acid evidence and the long delay in prosecution, the testimony of Steve Gates and Paul's sister, who recounted seeing Paul with scratches on his face and muddy clothing on the night of the disappearance, proved decisive. The jury deliberated for 3 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts. Paul Hicks was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. For Regina's surviving family, including her son, Montana, who had grown up in the shadow of his mother's unresolved death, the verdict represented the final, definitive triumph of truth over decades of theatrical deception. In analyzing these 4 distinct cases, the behavioral scientist observes a recurring theme in the pathology of the criminal mind, whether through the digital tracking of a geofence in Paso Robles, the toxicological revelation of fentanyl in Utah, the deleted cellular footprints in Indiana, or the unmasking of a literal rubber facade in Ohio, the efforts of modern forensic science and investigative dedication consistently dismantle the illusions of the perpetrator. These cases stand as an enduring monument to the victims, Nancy, Eric, Robbie, and Regina, ensuring that their lives are honored, their families comforted, and the absolute primacy of justice is preserved for future generations. The study of criminal psychology frequently reveals a striking paradox. Those who commit the most calculated offenses often operate under the comforting illusion of their own absolute superiority. They believe they can choreograph the perfect crime, construct an unassailable alibi, or weave a narrative so convincing that the truth will remain forever buried. Yet, as history and forensic science repeatedly demonstrate, it is this very arrogance that serves as their undoing. The human mind, when clouded by greed, malice, or the pathological desire for control, almost invariably leaves behind a trail of breadcrumbs. In the modern era, those breadcrumbs are no longer just physical. They are digital, biological, and psychological. To explore this reality, we must examine 4 distinct investigations that spanned different landscapes, from the sun-drenched vineyards of California to the quiet mountain towns of Utah, the hardworking neighborhoods of Indiana, and the rural reaches of Ohio. In each instance, the perpetrators wore masks of deceptive normalcy. They were polite painters, grieving mothers, devoted homemakers, and respectable foremen. But underneath those masks lay a darker reality that dedicated investigators, armed with science and persistence, eventually brought to light. This is a study of those cases, the psychological mechanisms of the offenders, and the relentless pursuit of justice that restored balance to the communities they shattered. The first chronicle takes us to the central coast of California, to a region halfway between San Francisco and Los Angeles, known as Paso Robles. The real name of this getaway town is El Paso de Robles, which translates to the Pass of the Oaks. It is a picturesque landscape characterized by golden foothills, ancient oak trees, quiet cattle ranches, and sprawling vineyards. It is a place that many describe as a fairy tale setting, scenic, quiet, and far removed from the violence of major metropolitan areas. Yet, down a secluded road named El Faro Road, in the middle of this natural beauty, an act of extreme violence occurred. The setting was a beautiful vacation rental property known as Paradise Ranch, featuring a 2-story Victorian home with wraparound porches and a weeping willow tree. The owner of this ranch-style property was 62-year-old Nancy Woodrum. She was a deeply respected fixture in the Paso Robles community, known for running a popular downtown hair salon called The Strand. Her clients and friends described her as possessing an amazing gift of openness, kindness, and generosity. Nancy was also a devout Jehovah's Witness, possessing a strong moral compass and a deep faith that guided her daily life. After her husband passed away, she lived alone in a small, rustic cottage on the property, having converted the main house into a vacation rental. On Friday, May 4th, 2018, a large group of more than 20 wedding guests checked into Paradise Ranch to celebrate a wedding at a local winery. The bride had found the property online, and she, along with her bridesmaids and close friends, looked forward to a perfect weekend. Nancy welcomed them warmly, introducing herself and mentioning that she would be staying nearby on the property in her personal cottage. The peace of that weekend was shattered on Saturday, May 5th. Amanda, Nancy's daughter, received a phone call from a member of their congregation. Nancy had failed to show up for a scheduled Bible study, an occurrence that was entirely unprecedented for a woman of her discipline and devotion. Alarmed, Amanda asked a neighbor to go over to the property to check on her mother. When the neighbor arrived, she found Nancy's cottage door wide open, the television blaring, and no sign of Nancy. Amanda rushed to the property. As she approached her mother's cottage, she observed that Nancy's purse, car keys, cellular phone, and tablet were still sitting on a bench inside. Her 2 vehicles remained parked outside. However, there was a large stain on the carpet and the bedding was missing from the mattress. Upon closer inspection, Amanda noticed what appeared to be blood splattered on the walls and the headboard of the bed. Panicked and shaking, she dialed 911. The local authorities responded immediately, recognizing that this was not a simple missing persons case, but a highly suspicious crime scene. Senior deputies and detectives from the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office, including Reserve Detective Clinton Cole, arrived to secure the area. The initial assessment was grim. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting that Nancy may have been surprised in her sleep or had opened the door to someone she recognized. The blood on the floor, the headboard, and a beige pillow left on the bed strongly indicated a violent struggle. As investigators began the daunting task of securing the property and identifying potential suspects, a critical discovery was made miles away. An officer with the California Highway Patrol located several items of bedding: a pillow, a dress, a pair of shorts, and a shirt discarded on the side of La Ponza Road, approximately 6 to 7 miles from Nancy's residence. The bedding matched the unique gingham print of the remaining linens in Nancy's cottage and was stained with blood. Amanda later confirmed that these items belonged to her mother. The evidence suggested that Nancy had been wrapped in her own bedding and transported away from the scene, either severely injured or deceased. The investigation faced an immediate hurdle: a massive pool of potential suspects. More than 20 wedding guests had been staying on the property, sleeping just yards away from Nancy's cottage. Investigators had to consider whether an out-of-town visitor had committed a crime of opportunity. The deputies secured a search warrant for the entire property, halting the wedding festivities and interviewing every guest. One guest, who could not initially be accounted for during the rehearsal dinner, raised red flags by becoming uncooperative and refusing to speak with detectives. However, after follow-up interview at his residence in Northern California, detectives were able to verify his whereabouts through photographs on his wife's cellular phone. He voluntarily provided a deoxyribonucleic acid sample, which ultimately cleared him of any involvement. In the physical environment of the cottage, investigators found key clues. In the dirt driveway, Detective Cole observed 2 fresh tire tracks and scuffle marks, indicating a physical altercation outside the cottage. Inside, a forensic specialist named Janine climbed a ladder to inspect the bedroom from an elevated angle. From that vantage point, she discovered a faint, partial handprint on the bloody pillow left on the bed. Investigators swabbed the center of the bloody handprint, hoping to isolate the perpetrator's deoxyribonucleic acid. The laboratory successfully developed an unknown male profile from the sample, but when they submitted it to the Combined DNA Index System, the national database, no matches were found. This meant the offender had no prior felony record. Investigators then turned their attention to other individuals who had access to the property. Nancy had recently decided to sell Paradise Ranch so she could devote herself to full-time ministry. To prepare the home for escrow, several independent contractors, including painters, plumbers, and landscapers, had been working on the property. Among those interviewed was Sean Bloom, a general contractor who had recently been fired by Nancy after a heated dispute over the quality of his work and outstanding payments. Bloom had sent contentious text messages threatening legal action if he was not paid quickly. While he initially refused to provide a biological sample without consulting his attorney, he later came forward voluntarily. His deoxyribonucleic acid did not match the profile found on the pillow, clearing him of suspicion. The detectives also investigated Nancy's son, Chad, with whom she had experienced a strained and bitter relationship. The two had not spoken face to face in several years, and Chad harbored resentment toward his upbringing. On the night before Nancy disappeared, they had exchanged text messages as Nancy tried to find common ground with him. Chad refused to come to the sheriff's station to provide a voluntary sample, expressing a deep distrust of law enforcement. Under surveillance, investigators observed Chad consuming alcoholic beverages at a public establishment and driving home. He was subsequently stopped for driving with an open container and the discarded beverage bottles from his truck were collected and sent to the laboratory. The testing cleared him of any involvement. With the major leads exhausted, the investigation began to stall. It was at this critical juncture that the sheriff's office decided to employ a novel investigative tool that had rarely been used in the state of California at that time: a Google geofence search warrant. Geofencing allows investigators to draw a virtual boundary around a specific geographic coordinate and request anonymized data from Google regarding cellular devices that were present within that boundary during a precise time frame. Fortunately, investigators had a highly accurate timestamp for the crime. A review of Nancy's telephone records revealed an attempted 911 call placed from her phone at exactly 12:17 in the morning on the night she vanished. The call had lasted for 0 seconds, indicating that someone had terminated the call almost instantly. This gave detectives a critical window to focus their geofence. When Google returned the geofence data, investigators began the meticulous process of filtering out the known devices of the wedding guests. Amidst the data points, they isolated a single, anonymous device number that had pinged directly inside Nancy's studio cottage at 1:33 and again at 1:52 in the morning. This device did not belong to Nancy or any of the registered guests. Investigators secured a subsequent subscriber warrant to identify the owner of the device. The name that came back was Carlo Fuentes Flores. The name was immediately recognized by the detectives. Carlo Fuentes Flores was a local painter who had been working on the decks of the main house at Paradise Ranch in the days leading up to Nancy's disappearance. During the initial phase of the investigation, Detective Cole had called Fuentes Flores, who had been cooperative, friendly, and completely unsuspicious. He had spoken warmly of Nancy, recalling how she had praised his hard work and even given him a tamale. The discovery of his device at the scene during the early hours of the morning completely changed the trajectory of the case. Investigators began a deep dive into the background of this seemingly ordinary family man. By day, Fuentes Flores was known as a polite, meticulous, and professional painter, a husband, and a devoted father who spoke constantly of his love for his daughter. But a search of his digital footprint revealed a deeply troubled double life. His search history was filled with explicit queries for older women, escorts, and adult material. Furthermore, investigators discovered numerous self-shot videos on his phone documenting encounters with various women. It became clear that Fuentes Flores harbored secret, compulsive desires that contrasted sharply with his public persona. To secure an arrest, investigators needed to connect him directly to the physical evidence in Nancy's cottage. They initiated a discreet surveillance operation using a specialized tactical unit. They followed Fuentes Flores to a local restaurant where he had lunch with his wife. When he departed, he left a plastic soda bottle on the table. Because the item was left in a public place, detectives legally retrieved it and submitted it for urgent testing. The deoxyribonucleic acid extracted from the bottle matched the profile found within the bloody handprint on Nancy's pillow. On the morning of his interrogation, Fuentes Flores was brought into the interview room at the sheriff's station. The detectives, including Clinton Cole, began by questioning him casually about his work on the property, establishing his familiarity with the layout of Paradise Ranch. Fuentes Flores claimed he did not even know that Nancy lived in the small cottage, asserting that he only worked on the main house. The detectives then began to apply pressure, revealing that they possessed advanced technological and biological evidence. When they confronted him with the reality of their findings, his demeanor shifted visibly. The polite, confident facade crumbled. He fell silent, his chest heaving, and admitted that he had made a mistake. Fuentes Flores initially attempted to minimize his culpability by spinning a tale of a tragic accident. He claimed he had returned to the property in the middle of the night to retrieve a ladder for his next job. As he was backing his truck up in the dark, he claimed he accidentally struck Nancy with his vehicle. He asserted that he brought her inside the cottage to help her, where she subsequently collapsed. The detectives immediately recognized the psychological shielding in his story. They pressed him on the biological realities of the scene, specifically the evidence of sexual violence and suffocation. Realizing the futility of his lie, Fuentes Flores confessed to the truth. He admitted that he had gone to the property that night with the intent to sexually assault Nancy. He entered her cottage, attacked her in her bed, raped her, and then smothered her with a pillow for approximately 45 minutes to prevent her from identifying him. When asked where Nancy's body was, Fuentes Flores offered to lead investigators to the location. He was placed in a police vehicle and directed detectives deep into the remote, arid landscape of the Carrizo Plain, nearly an hour's drive from Paso Robles. After stopping at several incorrect locations due to the vast, featureless terrain, Fuentes Flores pointed toward a small, out-of-place circle of stacked stones in the dry grass. There, investigators discovered Nancy's skeletal remains, which had been scattered by wild animals. Fuentes Flores had not even taken the dignity to bury her, simply covering her body with a light layer of brush and rocks. Following his formal arrest, Fuentes Flores was charged with first-degree murder with special circumstances in January of 2022, rather than face a public trial and the potential of a death sentence. He agreed to a slow plea, a legal mechanism where the prosecution presents its evidence to the judge, who then enters a finding of guilt. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His subsequent appeal was denied in July of 2023. Nancy's daughter, Amanda, and her family were left to process a profound loss. But they found comfort in carrying on Nancy's traditions, riding her beloved horse, Montana, and remembering a woman whose heart was as beautiful as the landscape she called home. The second chronicle of deception takes us to the majestic mountains of Summit County, Utah, to the quiet community of Camas. This is a region known for its affluent properties, outdoor recreation, and close-knit neighborhoods. It was here that a young mother constructed a narrative of grief, so elaborate that it captured national attention, only for the facade to reveal a chilling case of cold-blooded murder. Corey Richens, a 33-year-old mother of 3 young boys, appeared to be living the American dream. She was the owner of a successful real estate and home flipping business, K. Richens Realty. Her husband, 39-year-old Eric Richens, was a beloved and successful stonemason who ran C&E Masonry, a million-dollar business. Together, they enjoyed a wealthy lifestyle, taking family vacations, purchasing luxury vehicles, and raising their sons in a beautiful home. However, in the early morning hours of March 4th, 2022, Corey dialed 911 in a state of apparent hysteria. She reported that her husband was not breathing and was cold to the touch. When emergency medical Technicians and sheriff's deputies arrived at the home. They found Eric unresponsive on the floor of the master bedroom. Despite their efforts, he was pronounced dead at the scene. In the immediate aftermath, Corey told investigators a touching story of their final evening together. She claimed they were celebrating her successful contract to purchase a massive, unfinished estate in Midway, Utah, valued at nearly $3 million. She stated that she had prepared a mixed drink for her husband, a Moscow Mule, which they enjoyed in bed before she went to sleep. In her son's room to comfort him during a night terror, she claimed that when she returned to the master bedroom at approximately 3 a.m, she found Eric cold and lifeless. The initial theory whispered among the first responders on scene was that Eric might have suffered a sudden, tragic medical anomaly